In a world where voices are silenced,
Please.
one man refuses to lie down.
It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
He's been punted not once,
40 years they've been trying.
not twice,
You couldn't fire somebody if they were horrible, doing a terrible job.
but 3 times.
You're fired.
He doesn't tell you what to think, but gives you something to think about. Welcome to the Bonafide podcast with Luke Bona. And he's not
All right, here we go.
done
Hold your ears, folks.
yet.
It's showtime.
Well, g'day and welcome to another Bonafide podcast. It says here episode 119. I'm sure it's 120.
Yes.
120. Oh, look, it's changed. Episode 120. And yes, it's with me, Luke Bona. And some interesting discussions coming your way. You need to listen to each and every one of them. But look, it all works better when you guys get involved. Please share your opinion and make sure you leave us a voicemail or send us an email with your thoughts on today's podcast or any of the previous poddies. Remember to follow or subscribe to the show on whatever app it is you listen to, because it really does help us find new audiences. And speaking of new audience, Kelsey, what happened this week?
Your interview with Pauline Hanson was posted on YouTube and it's been viewed over 118,000 times at this point.
Is that good or bad? What does that mean?
It's good for YouTube. Oh. So there you go.
I'm pleased we did that chat. Most of the feedback has been really positive. I asked the questions. What?
I don't know if you've read through all the comments.
Oh, what are the bad ones saying?
That you didn't push Pauline enough, that you didn't challenge her enough. But most people, are receptive.
But the thing is, she said she had 20 minutes. She gave me nearly 40, but the whole time when we got to 20, I thought she's gonna leave me soon, and I wanted to touch on some important topics. We could have argued all day.
Oh yeah, of course.
But
you and Pauline have argued many times before.
Plenty. So she gave me more time than she said she had at the beginning, which I'm really grateful for. But we touched on some topics that were on the top of my mind, and I wanted to move on to the next one. Let her explain it, and we can let our listeners make up their own minds, because what do we do here? We don't tell you what to think. We give you something to think about.
Yeah.
The merch store is open.
Yep.
So head to bonafide.com or click on the link in the description. And remember, you can watch this episode on video on Spotify and, of course, YouTube. Coming up, Shane Oliver, chief economist with AMP. What's happening with interest rates? What's happening with the government and their budget? They've flipped on a few things. What indeed was the widow tax? And the weekend clearance rates, real estate clearance rates, on average had dropped to below 50% nationally, which is the lowest it's been in quite a long time. I'll ask Shane why. And is it a good thing for new home buyers? Does it just mean investors are now looking at the changes in the budget and going, I don't know if I have enough incentive to invest? Does it mean then that those houses didn't reach reserve, they were passed in, and now the agent has to go back to the vendor and say, the market shifted,
Soz.
rearrange your price, bring it down, which might bring new home buyers back in?
Someone's always got to lose in real estate, right? Like you're either the market is going in the buyer's direction or it's going in the seller's direction, right? There's no not everyone can be happy when it comes to real estate, right? Because for young home buyers to get actually in the market, home prices have to drop, right? Like that's the reality of the situation. But of course, people that own homes, they want the market to keep going up. So somebody has to lose in the end. And so who's going to lose?
And if the houses get cheap enough because the investors are going, now I'm going to back off.
Yeah.
If they get low enough, the investors will go, yeah, that's worth it now.
Yeah, I know.
And so you'll have all those investor hands in the driveway at auction day anyway.
I feel like we've just it's a lose-lose situation for everyone.
Well, the investors will still get their capital gains on new houses, but you've got to build them.
Yeah, I know. And
you've got to build them.
But you need to have you've got to have quite a lot of capital up front to build a house as well.
You do. Anyway, and I'll tell you something else I'm going to talk to Shane Oliver about. He's got 2 kids and his oldest is 28. She's been in a constant relationship for a long time. There might be wedding bells. Well, I'm not saying.
Wait, who?
Shane Oliver.
Really?
No, I'm just saying the reason his interest has spiked at another story that I've commented on today is there has been a survey which shows the average price of a wedding in Australia is about 41,000.
Oh, yeah. That's the minimum amount. Minimum. Nathan and I have kind of put our wedding planning on hold because we're at this point where if we want to have like a wedding, and we're not doing a fancy wedding. We're doing a backyard wedding, right? We're not doing anything like fancy schmancy.
Whose backyard?
Yours.
Oh.
So
where's everyone going to sit? Sorry, keep going.
Well, pool chairs. But even still, if we were to like plan a wedding at the moment, doing it as low cost as possible, we would have to be dipping into our emergency fund. And our emergency fund is there for emergencies, not for weddings.
What's an emergency?
So if one of us lost our job, if our car broke down.
I've got a spare one you can have, you know that.
Oh, no, thank you.
And you've used it before.
It's a death trap, that thing.
Why?
It's so rickety.
It works. It gets you from A to B.
It's a good
It's my mum's old car. It's a Subaru. And it's had more hits than Elvis, this thing, or the mum, because we had to take the car off her and a license off her.
Yeah.
But it gets you around. It's registered. It's safe.
Yeah. But back to my
It's got
point.
4 wheels and an airbag.
Yeah. Back to my point, though. Oh, my God. Yeah, we're essentially just putting all the wedding planning on hold so we can save up for a bit longer and then go for it.
I'm going to go through a little bit later in this podcast the itemised prices of, on average, when people who were getting married or had just been married, what they quoted. Venue and catering between 15 and 20 grand.
Yeah, the quotes we were getting back for actual venues, like 20K minimum. And that's just for the venue hire.
If you tell them it's for a birthday party, the price is halved. Don't tell them it's a wedding.
No, but you
don't tell them.
With weddings, right? Different suppliers have to coordinate with each other. At some point before the wedding happens, they're going to find out that it's for a wedding.
So what? Just say
it'll say in the contract though, like if we find out that this is a wedding or whatever, like we'll charge you
That's
extra
a scam.
price.
It's the same hall, the same tables, the same chairs, the same plates.
Don't complain to me about it. Complain to the ACCC.
That's a scam.
Yeah.
So if I have a birthday party, it could cost $5,000 for a hall. I'm just pulling that out of my ass. But if I say it's for my daughter's wedding, it could be 20.
Yeah, well, the thing is that there's a higher expectation of service when it's for a wedding.
No, I think that's another topic. I think it's a scam.
Look, I think it's a scam too.
Photography, videography, 3,000 to 6,000. Attire, dress, suits, shoes, all of that.
Just the wedding dress is $5K minimum.
Oh yeah. Entertainment, DJ/band.
Yeah.
2,000 to 4,000.
Nah, Spotify. Put the bloody aux cord in.
Exactly. Flowers and styling, 2,000 to 5,000.
Oh yeah.
A celebrant, 3,000. Well, anywhere from 800 to 3,000.
Yeah, crazy.
Transport, rings, cake, 2,000 to 4. Anyway, the list goes on. The average price between $38,000 and $41,000. Shane Oliver will talk about that. Is it a good investment?
No, of course it's
money
not.
Well spent or not?
Of course it's not.
That's coming up later. Also, you're going to meet a very interesting woman. Her name is Kate Seselja. Now, Kate is a very anti-poker machine warrior. In fact, it was the Reverend Tim Costello that put me onto Kate. She started gambling on poker machines when she was 18, and it was a bit of fun with her boyfriend at the time.
We all do it.
And he said, "Oh, you don't know how to do it? Look, you put your money in here, you push this button."
I still don't get the different combinations that you can do. It doesn't make any sense to me.
She has lost nearly $500,000.
Jeez.
She lost $12,000 in one night, and it nearly broke her marriage. And this is a really important story. She was pregnant with her 6th child, and she's sitting in a dingy, lonely corner of a
Casino or something.
a pub or
pub, RSL.
a club or a venue. She's pregnant with her 6th child, and she just lost a lot more money. And all this had been a secret from her husband for a while. She and her husband were saving up money to build a house in Canberra. She dipped into it. It all went on gambling.
Yeah.
She realised, I'm stuffed. And her husband actually rang her, and she's sitting there in the corner of this dingy place in front of a poker machine, pregnant, and she's crying. And she was in her mind thinking, I want to take my own life, but I don't want to harm my unborn child. How do I do it? It got to that. Her story is coming up, and it's absolutely compelling.
And I love what she said about gambling is addiction by design.
It's something that I don't understand because I don't have a gambling addiction. But those people who do, it's costing lives. And relationships and marriages and families. Poker machines. You might think, my ex-father-in-law said, oh, I can tell I'm trying to do the Hungarian accent. I can't do
It's terrible.
He said,
Stop trying. Just say it.
He said, I can tell when a machine's about to pay.
No,
you can't. You absolutely can't. They are designed to win. But there's all sorts of psychological tricks that go on while the machine's flashing and buzzing and whirring and twirling.
Yeah.
More on that Truckie Tuesday, we're going to meet an interesting woman, fascinating woman, Belinda Hughes. You know how James Glisson was a police officer, then became a police prosecutor, now is a defence lawyer? Same with Belinda Hughes.
But she does it for transport.
She was a police officer, even drove with the Highway Patrol. She then became the chief prosecutor with the NHVR.
Yeah.
Now she runs her own law firm, and she's a defence lawyer.
Yeah.
And she's fascinating.
Yeah.
And so we've got her on with Rod Hannafy on Truckie Tuesday coming up soon.
Yeah, interesting.
News, something to think about, something to laugh about. We're talking news.
Something else I'm going to talk to Shane Oliver about, Pauline Hanson, and I wanted to touch on this when I spoke to her, but we ran out of time. She has said that small businesses have come to her and said, paid paternity leave is costing us millions of dollars. Why should someone get paid when they're not working? And she's also said that small businesses have come to her and said it's nearly impossible to sack somebody these days, even if they're lazy. And she wants all of that reviewed. Shane Oliver will have his thoughts on those thoughts from Pauline Hanson a bit later.
Interesting. But those, I guess, remarks have apparently, according to the Australian Financial Review's latest monthly AFR Redbridge Group Accent Research poll, has led her to drop in the polls.
Yeah,
apparently.
she's gone down a little bit. She's still way ahead of the coalition, but as preferred Prime Minister, poll out today in the Fin shows Anthony Albanese has climbed ahead of her.
So what's with the paid parental? Is it just paternity leave? Did you say that she's got an issue
Paid
with?
paternity leave, and also the unfair dismissal laws. She says are too tight and it's too hard to sack somebody who's
So she
lazy.
doesn't want men to have time with their newborns.
No,
Is
she doesn't
that-
want women to get paid while they're with their children.
What?
It's your choice. It's a lifestyle choice. Why should your employer be paying you not to work? That's what she's saying.
But we need the population growth.
Well, she's saying she's voicing the concerns of small
Right,
businesses
okay.
that have come to her.
Well, okay, if small businesses that listen to this, can you let us know if this is an issue for you? Like, because I honestly have never, I think this is the first time I've heard somebody say that, paid paternity leave is a bad idea. But I would actually be very interested to hear from a small business that, why?
They're saying that it's also that kind of philosophy is
Small businesses I can understand a little bit,
But she's saying that policy. The critics are saying that policy is leading to widening the pay gap between men and women.
Oh.
But if you have a full-time job and you go on maternity leave, you can't. You have to come back to work by law at the same level as when you went on leave. Back in the old days, when you got pregnant in the workforce, you had to leave.
Oh.
And if you came back to that job, you'd start at the bottom again at the start-up pay rate.
Yeah.
So you could leave at a level up here, you get pregnant, come back. If they had you back, there was no obligation to have you back.
Right.
Back in the day, Kelsey, when you got married, you had to leave. If you had a job in a government job or even at the Commonwealth
Get
Bank.
in the kitchen, woman.
Get in the kitchen.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I know. Someone
And
said to me once, why don't you buy Nikki a watch for a birthday? I said, why? There's a clock in the microwave and there's a clock in the oven. So anyway.
Not funny.
Can you
imagine if Mum and I were like actual stay-at-home housewives? That would just never work.
No. So anyway, we'll have all that a little bit later on. Hey, you remember we had a chat with our shark expert?
Spark expert?
Yeah.
I'm going to say we've been speaking to electricians,
We should get a spark. We should get an electrician on.
Talk about what?
Bright ideas.
Solar panels.
Bright ideas.
Yeah.
Light bulb moments. Anyway, we had a shark expert on a little while ago, and the big debate as to whether netting works, the hook lines, the drum lines, culling. Well, the drones are back, and in New South Wales beaches, more sharks have been spotted, but they're bringing back, for example, at Coogee Beach, the drones, and they're going to go from sun up to sundown.
Yeah, I heard like 365 days a year.
Yeah. All year-round coverage. About 70 beaches along the New South Wales coast are now going to be part of a drone program. The state government's going to allocate, I think, about $34 million for shark spotting drones. It'll go from Palm Beach, which is the furthest northern beach of Sydney, to the furthest southern, that other direction beach, Cronulla. And they'll go, you're right, 365 days of the year. Would you feel safer swimming in the ocean knowing there were drones up
Yeah,
there?
I guess so. Like, because if somebody's watching the water, because I mean, I think the first step is getting attention to say, hey, there's a shark here, help. Whereas if that first step was already done and we knew the shark was there, then I think that would save lives. Yeah.
Do you know what? Maybe they should say, instead of culling sharks, if you don't want to cull sharks, why not pay professional fishermen when they find a shark, just tag it with an electronic device.
You try and tag a shark.
With a gun.
Oh, no.
With a spear,
I think, okay, continue. We'll go along with this.
Like a little thing.
So spear gun a shark with an air
only
tag.
So it penetrates their very tough skin and it leaves a transmitter in it. So when it comes near beaches, up in the clubhouse, beep, 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 beep. Oh, there's Henry. Yeah. There's Fred.
Look, I feel like if that was possible.
Are you with me?
Not really, because I feel like if that was possible, we absolutely would have done it by now. You can't just go out there spearfishing shark and tag
Not to kill them, but to put a electronic tag on them.
I don't know. I just feel like, I don't know. Nah. I think the drones are a lot better.
If you can tag sex offenders, you can tag sharks.
But you can't tag sex offenders.
Well,
They're just on a list.
They don't have ankles. That's the problem with sharks. So you got to tag them. A little shot through the tail.
No.
Through a fin.
I feel like that would be very difficult.
No, come on.
You would have to be like Hawkeye or something to make that shot.
You get up in the boat next to it and you aim it and you put a transmitter into it.
Okay.
You know what? You with me?
No.
Folks, come on. Give me some feedback.
Is spearfishing sharks
Not spearfishing, tagging them. You tag them
Is
with
that a good idea?
You tag them with a little, like an air rifle
the
thing.
BB gun.
A BB gun that can penetrate the skin and leaves a transmitter in there.
Okay.
I'm an ideas man.
That's probably on the aged care public school village is the best idea. Let's leave it there. I think that's probably on the bottom of the ideas list.
I don't understand what you mean.
Your idea man declarations come after an idea, and the best one that you've had thus far is the retirement village, retirement school community
childcare centres associated with primary schools. And then also surrounded by an aged care facility. So
and after school care, they get to go visit the oldies.
They
get, tagging.
And the oldies with
terrible.
Alzheimer's that can get out and wander the streets, you tag them with a transmitter. You get a BB gun.
From a distance.
And you tag them. So you know where they are. Oh, dear.
Okay.
We'll be back after the break. Play some music. This is a bizarre story. It's the story of an Australian man who has been charged with murder in Thailand. He was actually trying to flee the country. They got him at the airport. This man has been charged with the murder of a teenage girl. Her naked body was found in a suitcase in Thailand. So the man's trying to flee the country, get on a Jetstar flight to Perth. They arrest him. They find the body in a suitcase. He admits that he'd invited this young girl home and they'd agreed on a price.
Yes.
For services rendered.
Yes.
She said 1,000 baht. When it got back, he said, no, make it 500. He reckons she attacked him with a knife and it was self-defense.
Oh.
If something's self-defense, you don't kill somebody and put them in a suitcase and then leave the country, do you? Doesn't look good.
It doesn't look good.
And he said he apologised to the family, said, I'm sorry this happened.
But he was like, tell girls to be careful.
And tell girls to be careful.
I don't know. I think this guy is going to have a rude awakening. Can I just say, 1,000 Thai baht is 43 Australian dollars. Like, why are we haggling over $20 here? Why is a life lost over $20? Isn't that just ridiculous?
I think it's a terrible story. And I think this guy's going to spend a lot of time in Thailand.
Oh, definitely. Obviously I know nothing about the Thai court system. This might be something to talk to James about on your next chat of what happens if you do get arrested in a serious crime overseas.
It's a very good. When can we talk to him next? Soon.
Yeah, but don't hassle him too much. Well, otherwise he won't come back.
No, he loves us.
Yeah, okay. But he's also a busy man. So
he is.
Don't
He's got his own
stretch
podcast.
the friendship. Don't stretch the friendship.
Look up James Glisson. James Glisson at Lawyers. Yeah, he's fantastic. We'll get him back on.
And Luke, just some happy news before we move on to listener mail. The Socceroos have made it into the knockout phase.
Yeah, we don't quite know at the dropping of this podcast who they'll be playing. There's one of four, I think, that they could be playing. And it's on Saturday morning, 4 a.m. on SBS. So
This Saturday?
This Saturday.
Really? Damn, I think I'll be up
I'll
to
be
watch
up.
that.
I'll be
yeah.
up. Watching them fall over and flop and cry.
They do a lot of that, don't
Oh,
they?
it drives me mad. I've told you how I would improve soccer. We've been through this before. Do you want me to give you my points again?
Sure.
Okay. Once you get the ball over halfway, you cannot go back, like cross court in basketball. Get rid of the offside rule. If there's a player cherry picking down one end, mark him. Get rid of that offside rule.
What is the offside rule?
If the defender, so if there's an offensive player and he's down near the attacking goal and there isn't a defender between him and the goals, it's offside. So you can feed him the ball and he can run, but if it's just the offensive player and then the goalkeeper, he's offside if he hasn't got the ball at his feet. He can't wait for a long pass. Oh. So get rid of that offside rule. If someone's bothering you down there, get one of your defenders to go mark him. I want a two-shot goal. So if you shoot from a...
Oh, yeah, I can get behind that. Yeah.
So if you shoot from halfway...
You just want to turn soccer into basketball.
Oh, I haven't got to that yet. Basketball invented the 3-point line, and now with Stephen Curry, they're talking about a 4-point line. But let's have a two...
Wouldn't the 4-point line have to be on the other half of the court?
Stephen Curry does it.
Damn.
So anyway, he shoots from the logo. Do you know what that means?
No.
Look at any NBA game, and at halfway there's a big circle.
Yeah.
And there's a logo in it. It's usually the home team's mascot.
Right.
Shoots from the logo. Anyway, Kelsey, and I want a shot clock. So once you get over halfway, there's a specified time. A clock runs down that you have to shoot by, like in basketball. So you get over halfway, you've got 2 minutes to shoot.
Do you know how big a soccer field is? Though,
I don't care.
bro?
Okay, call it 3 minutes. But a shot clock.
No, even that. You'd be running so much.
Good.
No one. They would have to shorten the
Good.
time of the
I
game.
want to see some John Ambulance people out there reviving people. So I want a shot clock, no crossover halfway once you're over, get rid of the offside rule, and a 2-point shot perimeter.
Okay.
Or you could put up 2 extra goals either side of the goals, and you get 1 for that and 2 for getting it in the goals, like they do in Aussie Rules. Aussie Rules, by the way, the only sport on the planet where they give you a point for missing. Don't get me started. And if someone flops and falls around and rolls around crying because somebody's breathed on them too heavily, send them off.
Yeah. Any pussyfooting?
Put up a backboard,
You're out.
let them bounce it and let them shoot. No, I'm only joking. No, but a shot clock, get rid of the offside rule, no crossover once you're over halfway, and a 2-point line.
Do rules change often in soccer?
No, not often at all.
Oh.
Not often. Lots of other sports continuously
Well, the NRL
change.
is like constantly changing.
Oh, I know. Unbelievable, isn't it? So they changed basketball rules over the years. Wilt Chamberlain, one of the greatest centres to ever put on a jersey, Milwaukee Bucks, but then he played for the Los Angeles Lakers, one of the first big 7-foot centres. They couldn't stop him. He still owns the record for the most points scored in the basketball game, 104 I think he got. He got to 100. Then they invented the 3-second rule. So you can't plant yourself in the paint for more than 3 seconds. Then they widened the keyway to keep him further away from the basket. So they've changed rules because of players.
Well, soccer, I've just looked this up. It actually has changed rules as of the 2026 FIFA World Cup.
So what are the rule changes?
Time-wasting countdowns, a visible 5-second countdown for throw-ins and goal kicks.
Yeah, good.
Injury rules, players requiring on-field medical attention must leave the pitch for a mandatory 60 seconds. Stricter red card offences, new red card punishments were introduced for players who leave the field in protest or cover their mouths in a confrontational situation. Remember that happened recently? I think it was Paraguay, because obviously there's so much shit talking on a soccer field, right?
So lip readers couldn't get him.
Yeah, so, and it's very common, right, where you see soccer players do this, saying really horrendous stuff. Yeah, and it was
so that the cameras can't and the lip readers.
Yeah, so then the person saying he said something, racist or whatever, no one can do anything about it because his lips were covered. He could say, no, I didn't. I said, I love your breath.
You've got nice buns.
Yeah, you got nice buns.
Okay, I've got another rule. Every player has a microphone.
Well, that would be fun because there's so much shit talking on a soccer
But
pitch.
you have to understand, what about the Australians giving it to Donald Trump? Have you heard this?
Oh,
pull this up.
Oh, I wanted to show you
Pull
some of
this
the,
up. Pull this.
No, it's
We're Aussies, we're on a bender.
Bender.
Donald Trump's a sex offender.
Oh, I
and
wanted
they're singing
to show
it.
you.
And Donald Trump, and so other countries have taken it up and they're loving it. And Donald Trump doesn't go to any of the football matches, and it's America. In fact, his advisors, this is the latest, that Donald Trump may only go to games from non-English speaking countries so that they can't, the press can't understand what they're saying. We're on a bender. Donald Trump's a sex offender. That's the Australians. All their visas are going to be cancelled. Okay, here it is here. Sex offender.
So this is England France.
France?
English fans.
You're thinking about France and
I know.
France.
English fans chanting this about the Germans. Si, senor, Germany have never won a war. Something about the Germans you should know. Germany have never won a war.
2-0. It is 2-0. So there you are.
There are some really...
That is pretty cruel.
There are some really
The
good
French
ones.
are in the World Cup. I don't know why they just don't give up. So anyway, surrender. So anyway, yeah, there you are. The chanting.
Donald Trump is a sex.
The
There was another one that the Aussies were doing that was pretty rude. I can't remember what it was. I think they were saying like, we're going to get deported or something.
I know. The visas are law. You watch the CIA and the FBI will be tracking every one of them and they won't be invited back to the country. In fact, they could be kicked out.
Yeah.
It's very funny if it wasn't about such a tragic issue.
I know. Yeah.
I know. We've got some listener mail. Got a voice message here.
Hi guys, it's Nathan. Wow, what a fantastic woman Pauline is. She explained herself very well. Not that she has to do that every day because everyone is sick and tired and fed up with the current government that we have leading this country. Well, they're not doing too much of that. But anyway, like yourself, Luke, you don't tell us what to do. You give us something to think about. And I think about it every day of my living life. What kind of a country are we going to leave behind for our children? Not just my children, I fear for, but the First Nation people's children. If we don't have an early election, we're going to lose this beautiful country of ours.
What is all this talk about an early election? Because Pauline mentioned it as well.
Well, if the polls continued to go very, very badly for the Prime Minister, there is a chance that there could be a change of leadership. This is what they do. There's no loyalty in either party. And, of course, if you can't get legislation through the Senate twice, it can trigger a double dissolution. I don't think there will be. I think Albo will hang on as long as he can and try and get traction. I don't think there'll be an early election. But I'll tell you something that is interesting to watch because I want to move away from this. But Andrew Hastie, who was a Liberal frontbencher, former SAS soldier.
We made it in the Daily Telegraph as well, Luke.
We made it in the Daily Telegraph as well. Andrew Hastie is declaring war on One Nation. I don't think he's reading the room.
No.
I don't think Andrew Hastie is reading the room. Andrew Hastie is one of 21 current and former SAS soldiers. By the way, he gave evidence for the defence during the trial of Ben Robert Smith. But he says, One Nation has declared war on me. After Senator Hanson's top advisor, who is James Ashby, told Sky News registered One Nation members in his Western Australian seat expect us to run a very strong candidate. So One Nation expecting to run a candidate against, I don't think they will. Pauline has said that she's only going to go for Labor seats, but Andrew Hastie's got his backup, and I don't think he's reading the room very well. I don't think he needs to declare war on Pauline Hanson.
No, I don't think so.
No, but anyway, there you are.
Now,
he's taken it very personally.
Which is like what you're not meant to do in politics. You know, you're meant to be working for the people, not like for your own ego.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Dean has sent us an email. I love this. Kelsey, you are wrong.
Yeah.
I love it when an email starts with that.
Know.
Kelsey, you are wrong. 5 exclamation points.
There's no exclamation
I put them
point.
in. I can hear his voice.
Okay.
I walk my dogs every day and I pick up their shit, and if no council bin is near me, I carry it home with me. So you reckon it's okay to put it in someone else's bin, even when it's been emptied by the garbo?
Look, I can see.
No, you've got nothing. Are you getting tired of being hammered?
Look, I can see now that would be annoying for people. So I will change my ways. However, previously I didn't see the big issue in putting dog poo in a bin.
If it's full and the garbage man's about to come, well, maybe. But you don't put your dog's poo in someone else's bin. You carry it home or you look for a council bin. End of argument. Thank you, Dean. Got a message from Darren. Hi, Luke and the gang. Back in the 80s, we had Monash Playground here in South Australia. Oh, dangerous playgrounds. All metal, on dirt, no plastic or rubber. Yep, they were the days. Sadly, it was shut down due to public liability. Yeah, it did reopen in 1996. But with the much sanitised version that's accepted now. They were dangerous. You got injured, but
how is the rock playground that we were talking about last week? How is that not going to fall under public liability? What's the difference between a rusty slide and poles sticking out of rocks?
That was a strange playground. Put another photo of it up. It was a very strange playground. Didn't look like much fun. Anyway.
Well, it might be. Kids find just cardboard boxes fun, you know?
Yeah. And Corey left us a message. I want to hear this.
Hey, Luke and Cal, it's Corey again. Bit of a regular caller now.
Freaking
Yeah, we talk about struggling to get drivers in the industry. The company I work for is a family business, very family orientated, but we're struggling to get drivers at the moment when we need them, simply because they don't want to do what work we do. Now, we do milk run freight throughout central Queensland, western Queensland and all that sort of stuff. We get a lot of people come in going, oh, no, we don't want to do that. We don't want to split a B double and take one pallet to this place, or, you know, because that's what our job does. Or they don't want to do tarps. They just want to do depot to depot sort of freight. That seems to be a big problem for us at the moment if we need to get it advertised for drivers.
Yeah.
They just don't want to simply do what we do. You know, you've got to be somewhat mechanically minded, like if you've got to top up your oil or your coolant or something like that, or a roadside repair, you sort of got to try and limp your way back to the depot or to your nearest, wherever the mechanic is.
So is it skilled drivers that are missing?
Well, back it's one thing to get behind a steering wheel and drive a truck. It's another thing, like the old-fashioned truckies who knew how to fix their vehicle, especially if they were owner drivers. They changed their own tyres. Rod Hannafy, if he hears a noise, chances are he knows what the problem is, and if he's got the tools on board, he can probably fix it. These days, you drive, anything goes wrong, you're told to pull over and call for help. And I guess the owner of the truck, the owner of the company, doesn't want an amateur fiddling with his truck.
Yeah.
Which is worth $500,000 more, $750,000. So I get that. But it's like, you know, the most versatile people in the world, bar none, are farmers.
Oh.
They're vets.
Clarkson's Farm.
How good is that?
How good is that?
But they're mechanics, electricians, vets,
builders,
thinkers, problem solvers, accountants, experts on the weather. I mean, farmers are the most versatile people in the world. By the way, how good is Clarkson's Farm? I never watched it until you put your mum onto it. It's our favourite show.
Yeah, it's very good.
It is unbelievable.
Very good.
Did you hear about his Hawkston beer?
Yeah. What about it?
Did you hear about the choir?
What do you mean?
Okay, you haven't heard about this?
Well, I saw on an episode that he had a choir.
Okay, well, he's got the Diddley Squat choir, and they're all local farmers.
I love that.
And they went on Great Britain's Got Talent.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to say any more, but you should see the episode. You should see it.
No, I'm not going to watch it, so just tell me now.
But other people might. I don't want to spoil it. So they went on UK Got Talent, Great Britain, whatever it is. This choir that he put together. But then he's got his choir also doing the TV ad for his beer. And 3 of the ads got banned.
What? Why?
Play one. Now find it now. I want you to watch it. So just type into YouTube, Hawkston beer ad banned, and it'll give you one of them. It is piss funny, and play it, as I want your reaction.
This is Jeremy Clarkson's band ad, The Farmer's Choir.
Great.
Difficult to put into the spoken word how hard it is to make Hawkston lager. So instead, I've put it into a song for some farmers to sing.
These are real farmers.
They're quite good, aren't they?
Hawkston is good.
Couldn't they just leave that ad but just bleep out the Fs?
He was making a point.
It's good.
So that's his beer, and it's selling like you would not believe. His restaurant has been tried to be closed down a number of times, but he's fought through, and all the mistakes, the cameras just kept rolling. And so we wanted to watch him succeed, but we loved watching him fail.
Yeah.
And the things he wins at and the things he doesn't, there's some great stuff around the corner. It is absolutely fantastic. That's a real choir. They're real farmers.
Yeah, and they're actually quite good at singing.
The Diddley Squat Farmers Choir. So there you are. Coming up, Chief Economist with AMP, Shane Oliver. It's been a little while since we've had the pleasure of having Shane Oliver, Chief Economist with AMP, on the program, but there's a lot to talk about today that involves each and every one of us, I'd say. Joins me now, from his very modest palatial home on the Northern Beaches. Hello, brother. How are you?
Good Lord, Luke. Great
Good
to be back.
Lord. Good Lord, Shane Oliver. A fair bit to get through today. Look, I wanted to talk to you about the federal budget. We did talk about it just after it was delivered, but there's been some changes. And interesting to see today, Shane, that clearance rates around Australia, on average, have dropped below 50%. Now, what do you put this down to? And is it changes in the budget? Is it capital gains? Is it are buyers being more wary about the market at the moment? What do you put this down to? You've seen the figures. They were published in today's Australian Financial Review.
Look, those figures are definitely weak. I wouldn't say they're catastrophic. I actually put out a little tweet or an X post Saturday nights, which had the clearances in there. And to me, it's just bouncing along it's hit the bottom of the range that it's normally in. Now, of course, at the time of the pandemic, it went a lot lower. But so you could argue, as the housing minister did last week, that it's just a normal cyclical correction.
Right.
Nothing unusual. Only problem is that it's early days yet. Could go for a while further. I think the property market's been hit by a bit of a perfect storm, to be honest with you. We had huge gains into last year, and that led to very poor affordability or very high house price to income ratios. Then, of course, we started to see the interest rate story went from there's going to be two or three more cuts in August. By the end of the year, that's gone back to, well, it looks like there's going to be hikes. And then, of course, we've already seen three of them this year. So the clearance rate actually peaked, I think, around October, November last year, and then a bit of bounce, and it's way down. So it peaked up around, I think, 75. So we're now down around or below 50. So quite a sharp fall, but I think a lot of that was the change in the interest rate story. Then, of course, we had the war come along, and that hit confidence. Whether the war's over or not is debatable. We can debate that one until the cow comes home, given the news out of the Middle East. But that hit confidence. But I think the big factor, of course, has then been the changes in negative gearing, capital gains tax. Mm-hmm. And if you're of the view that those things inflated prices, then you'd also have to be of the view that if you take those concessions away or substantially curtail them, which is what's happened here, then they will deflate prices. And that makes logical sense because investors have seen their after-tax rate of return change because the capital gains tax arrangements won't be as generous as they used to be, and new investors in newly purchased property won't get negative gearing. Yeah. So they're demanding, logic for an investor is to say, well, I'll only get in if I get a lower price than previously, or higher rents, or some combination of the two. I want a higher rental yield up front. And so investors are holding back. So you've got this combo of high interest rates, poor confidence, poor affordability, and now the tax changes. They're all coming together. We've got a perfect storm out there pushing the property market down. As I said, so far it just looks like a normal cyclical correction. But of course, it's early days yet. I think this will go on for a while yet. And then we could see more weakness down the track. But it's all, of course, being associated with falling prices, particularly in Sydney and Melbourne, and in the boom time cities, Adelaide, Brisbane and Perth, they're all slowing down.
Okay, so these are you think these are investors that are just backing off. The incentive isn't there with capital gains unless, of course, they buy a newly built home. So investors are backed off. The reserve price hasn't been reached. They're passed in. This is what I assume. So will the vendors and the agents then say, well, hang on, we're going to meet this new market? Won't that bring prices down? And wouldn't that be good news for first home buyers?
Oh, it would be, Luke. Yeah, it would be. That's, I guess, what the government's been aiming to do with all of this, get the prices down, create a window of opportunity for first home buyers to get into the market at a somewhat lower price. And of course, vendors, when I look at the auction clearance figures, they also show the listings and the sales, and the listings are down on a year ago. So at the moment, the vendors are hanging back. It looks like they're not in a hurry to sell. If you're an investor, you've already got a negatively geared property. You don't want to sell that because the next one you buy won't be negatively geared. And if you're an owner-occupier, you're thinking, well, if I sold a few months ago, I could have got a much better price. Now I'm going to get a lower price. I'll just hang on to my property. So vendors at present aren't selling. That may change, but whatever it is, there are less buyers there, and some vendors are lowering their prices, and so prices have come down. And yes, that does provide an opportunity for first-home buyers. The question is whether it's enough. I've had chats with my kids are Gen Z and millennial, and one's in favour of the tax changes, another one's not. They think another one. I was having a chat with the cafe. A millennial was saying, "Well, this is a bit like you guys, you older guys, you and me, pulling the ladder up. You've got the benefit of these things. Your generation's got the benefit. You're now pulling the ladder up, so we can't generate wealth to the same degree you did. That's unfair." Others say, "Well, no, these tax arrangements were inflating property prices, so good to see it go." So there's mixed views on all of that. The other thing is that I don't think the real issue in Australia is negative gearing capital gains tax. I think the real issue as to why we have unaffordable property is that we haven't been building enough homes for the number of people that are here. Right. So there's been constraints on supply for all sorts of things, reasons that we talked about, shortage of tradies.
Immigration always comes up.
But it's mathematical. If you put more people into a place and they all want a house, but you don't build more houses, then the prices go up. So immigration levels got out of balance. I think immigration is great for Australia, but it got out of balance in the last few years. And for the last 20 years now, there hasn't been enough supply in the property market generally for the last 20 years. So this has been an issue. This poor affordability issue has been an issue, I think, since the middle part of last decade. So all those things are playing into it. And fundamentally, if you don't fix them up, you can get a bit of relief in the short term as prices come down, as investors hold back, but eventually the underlying supply shortfall will still remain. And there's a danger, of course, that there'll be less investors in the market, therefore ultimately less supply. And Treasury has estimated that as a result of their changes, there'll be 35,000 less dwellings constructed over the next decade as a result of the investment tax changes. Now, the flip side is they also say, well, we're going to be 60,000 more from the $2 billion we put in to speed up infrastructure construction. But that's all a bit iffy, as to whether that'll work or not. But generally speaking, I think less investors in the market overall, even though they could still get a negative gearing benefit on a brand new property.
Yes.
Less investors overall probably means less supply over the longer term. So that's a bit of a drag, and that's why we've been going in circles on this issue as a country, debating it for the last 7 weeks. It's unclear as to whether it fixes the problem in the long term. It may give you a short-term boost. Yes, prices come down, first-time buyers get a window, but is that going to be enough longer term?
There's been a lot of talk lately about the backflip on the widow tax. Now, can you explain what that tax was or is and how it affects us?
Well, that seemed to be one that only got discovered last week. I started reading about it last week. It was initially called a death tax, and they changed that. So the death tax aspect of it was the trusts, family trusts, and they included testamentary trusts. Now that's been removed, and so they've solved the death tax issue. But then last week it was realised that if you have an existing rental property that is negatively geared, you can keep that. It's owned by two people, say a husband and a wife. One of them dies, then immediately the ownership of that property changes and it loses the negative gearing benefit. That's seen as somewhat unfair. How can this possibly be? And so that's why they call it a widow's tax. The surviving partner will end up with a less favourable taxation outcome.
And they call it a widow's tax. They don't call it a widower's tax. So they're assuming the bloke's going to go first. I know. I just thought I'd point that out. Anyway, keep going.
But then the government has said they'll fix that. Well, that's right. I last saw that the government said they'll fix that up, but it might not be till the second round of tax goes at this. So basically, this is passed through Parliament. The tax changes are passed through Parliament, and those tax changes that pass through include the negative gearing, capital gains tax change, and the trusts. They did fix up the death tax aspect on trusts. The negative gearing still stays the same. At capital gains tax, they made some changes to make it a little bit more amenable for small business and startups, although there's still a lot of debate about that, whether it's going to be enough. They also changed last week at the behest of the Greens the ability of separately managed super fund. This is where you manage your own super fund. You used to be able to borrow into that fund and then buy property. So that was seen as a backdoor way to get into the property market. The Greens insisted that that be changed, and therefore super funds that you run yourself, you can't no longer borrow to buy into property. So that's been banned. So all those changes have gone through. I guess the widow tax still has to be fixed up, although they say they're going to. The thing about all of this, I find, is that we still don't know whether we're actually going to solve the problem in the housing market. So that was the issue we're just talking about. I don't think it really fixes the issues up for innovative startups. The rules to get capital gains tax relief on that, the 50% discount, I think are overly complicated. And the other issue I find is that, we've gone through all of this. We should have had a budget, I think, that should have been focused on boosting productivity. There was a bit of deregulation in the budget. In the end, we as a nation have gone down this rabbit hole debating some bits of the tax system, but not the critically important bits of the tax system that need to be fixed up. It's a bit of a wasted opportunity, I kind of think, that the underlying tax system is still as messed up as it was. We don't rely enough on GST. We rely too much on income tax. We still have bracket creep. We still have stamp duty. All those big issues, they're all still there. They haven't been resolved, even though we've been having this pitch debate for the last almost 2 months now. That worries me a little bit. It depresses me a little bit. So it kind of looks like it was just a revenue-raising exercise at the end of the day, and we haven't seen any benefits from that in terms of offsetting tax cuts.
Do you think it's a wise decision to borrow from your super to buy an investment property? I was having an interesting discussion with Scotty Phillips about this, and he's concerned that debt inside an SMSF adds risk that super shouldn't be taking. The other thing is, should housing be for shelter first and investment second?
In terms of the first issue, no, I don't think a super fund should be able to borrow to buy property.
Right, you're in agreement with him there, right?
I totally agree with Scotty Phillips there. And it's just worth noting that other funds that you may be in or I might be in, they can't borrow. So it seems an inequity that an SMSF, a separately managed super fund run by yourself, can borrow to buy property, but a regular super fund can't. It was always the nature of super when it was set up that it can't be geared and can't take excessive risks.
But can't I cash in my super? Okay, I got a fair whack of super. Can't I say, okay, I'm going to take it away from whoever, you know who it is. But can I take it away, put it in my bank account and spend it how I want?
Well, you can. Of course you can. That's up to you once you do that. And you can borrow money against it and buy investment property if you want. You can do whatever. I think when super was originally set up, it didn't want to be seen as a highly speculative thing, taking lots of highly geared risks. But for some reason, the ability of your individual super funds to do that was allowed. It's only a certain sort of borrowing. I think it's called limited recourse borrowing or something like that. So the idea is the super fund borrows, but if the property fails and they can't meet the payments on it, the lender does not have recourse to go after the other assets in the super fund. But still, you could have a huge exposure in your SMSF to property, which leads to a lack of diversification. And that particular property may have an issue with it, fall in value, and then that adversely affects your super, and then you're back getting the pension.
And then you're back on the pension. Exactly. I've got to keep moving. I had Pauline Hanson on the podcast last week, and I had limited time to.
Good interview. Yeah.
Thank you. But I wanted to talk to her about this, but you heard the interview. There were other things to talk about. But this one, I want your opinion on. That press club speech that she gave, there were a number of things in there, and it's going to take us a while to get through them. But here's one in particular. Her stance on paid parental leave. And it has sparked massive debate following that address at the National Press Club. She's questioned why employers should have to fund maternity leave, but later walked back on her comments and clarified that she supports taxpayer-funded government PPL. But she questioned why businesses should pay wages to women on maternity leave. She claimed, quote, if women take time off and they are not paid their wages because they're not working, fair enough. Why should businesses pay? But they're not at work. That's why the pay gap is there. Your thoughts?
I think the pay gap reflects a lot more than that. Good news is the pay gap's come down over the last 50 years. I've got some data on that, and back in the 70s, the pay gap was something close to 40%. Now it's on just average full-time earnings. It's down to around 13%, I think it is. Yeah, 13%. Come from almost 40% down to 13%. So it has improved dramatically. Part of the reason was that women take time out to raise a family, to have children, particularly through the pregnancy phase, and that often sets them back relative to men. And so as a result, you go back to when I started in certain companies. Once you announce you were
1978, 79?
Yeah, in certain companies, once you announce as a woman you're pregnant, you then have to resign from the company.
Or sometimes even when you got married.
Yes, it does. When you got married, and then that sets you back. When you want to come back into your career, you're then set back, and you have to start all over again. If you had a good employer, you might go back to the old one, the same one, and fair enough. But often, most of the time, that didn't happen. Each time you're doing this, you're starting behind where your male counterparts would have been, and then therefore you ended up with this bigger pay gap. Over the years, those rules have been removed and changed, and companies have got with the times and treated men and women equally. They don't have to resign if they get paid. A lot of companies are already offering paid parental leave, quite generous arrangements. The federal government's decided, well, that's a reasonable thing to do. And as a result, that's where we've got to as a society. We've got to that point, which I think partly helps address the gender pay gap. I think to remove that would be a backward step, and I'm not a great fan of that. I think that would see the gender pay gap go back the other way when the aim is to try and reduce it. The reason a company might logically do that anyway, even if the government didn't request this, was that you want to maintain a good workforce. You know, you offer paid parental leave. The odds are your employees will regard you highly and they'll work hard for you and they'll be incentivized. They said, this company's treating us pretty well and now we'll come back once we've had the child. So I think it makes sense from a corporate point of view as well as from a societal point of view.
Senator Hanson also claims that Australian businesses' hands are tied and lazy workers can't get sacked. You would have heard that.
There are issues there.
She called for a complete overhaul of Australia's industrial relation laws. Some small business leaders and employment lawyers have disputed the One Nation leader's claims that workplaces cannot sack people these days. But she says more business owners come up to her and say, I can't sack this person. They're on their phone all day. They're playing games on the computer. They're lazy, but I can't sack them. Your thoughts?
Well, look, I'm not in a position to sort of say whether this is a big problem or not, but my understanding is that it has become harder. It's also the case that the Fair Work Commission, I think, is inundated with wrongful dismissal claims, that a company might sack someone for doing the wrong thing and they might have good reason to do it, but then they can be hit with a wrongful dismissal claim, and the Fair Work Commission has been overwhelmed with these claims these days. So there are issues there, and this is partly goes back to, we went through a long phase of labour market deregulation, starting with Hawke and Keating and continued, some would say went too far with the work choices arrangements under Howard and Costello. But anyway, that was wheeled back a little bit. But then we've kept going back, and the current government has imposed a lot of extra regulations around employing people, which has reduced their flexibility and could be a bigger problem. And I think on that front, Pauline Hanson may have a valid point. That most economists, when you look at Australia, over the last decade, we've seen productivity growth slow to a crawl. Productivity growth, that's producing more for the same number of hours worked, is the way we grow our living standards on a long-term basis. And over the last decade, it's come to a crawl. And therefore, it could be a factor. You know, when we complain about the cost of living and wages not keeping up, one of the reasons is lack of productivity growth. One of the reasons behind that is a labour market that's become far less flexible.
Let's just have a listen to what Pauline Hanson said about lazy workers and not being able to sack them. Let's have a listen.
Industrial relations, I can assure you, needs a complete overhaul because it's not working. Businesses also tell me you can't sack people these days. They're on their phones, they don't work, they don't turn up. Is it really working for small business out there, industries, manufacturing? And I was speaking to one business person, he said the latest increase is going to cost him $50,000 for his business. And he said, I've got to find $100,000 to pay that. He said, I'm going to have to let people go. So it is a great concern. You need to look at the other side of the ledger. Can businesses afford and pay that? I understand there is a struggle that is happening in people being able to afford and pay their bills, but there has to be a balance.
Finally, Shane Oliver. Interesting figures out today, also in the Fin Review. The average cost of a wedding. You ready for this? You ready for this?
It's going to be more than one. I had one.
How old are your kids?
Well, that's the problem. I don't know if you're thinking of my wedding, but my kids are now, 24, 27, almost 28. So
married?
No, but they've got steady relationships.
Steady partners. Okay, this might cost you if you're traditional. The average cost of a wedding in New South Wales, including the Sydney and Warriewood regions. These are figures out today, also in the Fin. It's roughly $40,000.
Yeah, that's amazing.
38,000 to 41, which, while is a common national benchmark, prices scale quickly depending on guest count and desired styling. Venue and catering, 15 to 20,000. Do you know what the average price per head of a guest at a wedding is? Between 150 to 225 per guest.
Yeah, God.
Photography and videography, between 3,000 and 6,000. Dress, groomswear, the matrons of honour, the bridesmaids, all of that, between 3,000 and 5,000. Florals and styling, between 2,000 and 5,000. I'm going on here. The celebrant can cost between 1,000 and 3,000. Average price of a wedding, about $40,000. Is it, Shane Oliver, as an economist, is it money well spent? Or should you put it into a high interest bearing bank account and that $40,000 over 2 years might get you $2,000? Or are you better off putting it towards deposit on a flat?
Well, this is like one of those loaded questions amongst
I know, that's what I do.
boomers, where the baby boomer asked the question, says, no, it's not good value. You should be putting it towards the home. It's an example of spending too much money on smashed avocado and rye bread. The chai tea,
the chai tea, exactly.
So, look, I think this is an indication of, because I love chai tea.
I do too. Yeah, I have the chai tea bags, the brown ones.
You have the tea bags. No,
it's chai tea in a tea bag. Yeah. Anyway, please go on.
We're going to distraction here. It's funny when you go overseas. I go to cafes overseas. Can I have chai tea, please? You got sticky chai or prana chai, and none of them have it. They don't have it. And you come back to Australia and think, gee, this is a good country. We've got all this stuff. But anyway, I think it's an example where expectations have increased dramatically. I mean, everyone wants to have a great wedding. There's no doubt about this. Maybe I'm saying this as a father who might have children getting married soon and don't want to spend too much money, but we'll all have that debate, as the people getting married these days have that debate. But I mean, of course, you want to have the best wedding, but these costs have gone up, and there are examples of how people, I guess, expect better things these days. Expect better venues, expect someone to show up at the venue providing the music, the celebrant, and all these sorts of things. Whereas in the old days, you didn't have that. You just get a priest and make a donation to the church. So it is an example of how things have changed, and it does make it harder, of course, for young people, I guess, if you are getting into a property, to do that. But I guess as an economist, I would also say it's a matter of preference. Whatever floats your boat, so to say. So it's up to individuals to decide, what they want to do on this. And if this is what you want to do, then that's fair enough, and that makes you happy. Then that's the way to do it. But just bear in mind that there are trade-offs here. If you're going to spend $40,000 up front on that, you could have spent that $40,000 towards a deposit on a house.
And in this day and age, is it still traditional that the father of the bride pays for everything and the father of the groom pays for the grog? That's the way it used to be. That's the way it used to be.
That's right. My understanding is that it is, but it's softened a little bit around the edges, I think. Yeah, I mean, that rule was always a bit sad. And it's a very sexist rule because it sort of implies...
Well, it was like the old dowry system, wasn't it?
It is an old dowry system that you've got to pay for something to offload your daughter.
Offload your daughter.
I think that's terrible. So we talk about Sharia law in Australia. I don't think really there is Sharia law in Australia, and I agree with you in your line of questioning on that one, that you have to obey the rules of the law in the laws of the land, and so therefore you can't have Sharia law in Australia. But that is an example, this old idea where the father or the family of the bride would pay the full cost does emanate from something which is very, very sexist. So I would prefer to see that one go. I think it should be split if possible.
When we went to India, we saw a lot of Indian weddings. And the dowry system there is alive and well, and particularly the arranged marriages, or there are love marriages and there are arranged marriages. It's that system is still going. So, and you remember the days when your bride, what year did you get married?
95.
Oh, you're a bit late. My first was 1982. I was 20.
Wow.
Yeah.
You did start early.
Yeah. Well, by the way, I'm 2-0 at the moment, and the current one I'm with won't do it, and I totally understand. But back in the day, and you had the girl stayed at home with her parents until her wedding night. And she had, what was it called, a glory box? It was a box where she would save things, pillow slips, Manchester, knives and forks, plates. Do you remember that? Was it called? That wasn't a glory box. What was it called? Do you remember
well, I don't know. It's a bit before my time. It didn't happen in my case.
A diary box. So it's called something. And you got married from home, and your first night with your husband was on your wedding night.
There you go.
Those days are gone, aren't they?
They are. Well, good. I mean, some aspects of those things weren't so good.
Now, how many of your kids are girls?
A boy and a girl.
You got a boy and a... Yeah.
First is a girl, and then the second is a boy.
So the girl is how old? 28.
Well, she's coming up for 28 in
28
in August, I think. We're both Leos.
Yeah. So what are you, August?
August, yeah.
Yeah. See, how good was that? You might be up for a bit of a spend of some serious folding. So the bloke that she's with, is he a good boy? Do you approve?
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Okay. Oh,
I shouldn't say this. Well, I'm not going to say he's a bad guy on the podcast. You might hear it, but no, he is a really good guy. I like him.
That's very good. Well, you're very, very lucky. All right. Hey, listen, how many more interest rate hikes this year?
I reckon one, possibly two. Look, I don't like to say this because it is rough for people with a mortgage, and I say this with a degree of apprehension because I know it will upset many people. But I think the problem is we do have an inflation problem in Australia. I mean, I get a letter in the mail and someone says the price has gone up. I've got to get my hair cut, and there's a little sign there saying our costs have gone up, so we're going to have to raise the cost of getting a haircut by 10%. We've become a bit inflation prone. I know where that led to in the 70s, and then it got really hard to get it back down again in the 80s. That's what many of us are complaining about. We're not complaining about unemployment. We're complaining about the cost of living going up and up and up and up. Therefore, I think the Reserve Bank probably does have to act a little bit more to bring it back down. I mean, this is the thing. The last inflation numbers we got had good news and bad news. The good news is the headline rate went down from 4.2, I think, to 4% because of lower fuel prices. So great, fantastic. I filled up at $1.47 on the weekend. That's even better. So maybe it'll come down a bit more. But the flip side is that the underlying rate of inflation, the trim mean, which strips out all these volatile things like fruit and veggie prices and of course fuel prices, it rose to 3.6%. So it's still going the wrong way. And most of us are experiencing that with rises in our cost of living and wages aren't keeping up. That's a problem. I think it's another big problem. Part of the problem is excessively expensive housing. But bottom line is I think the Reserve Bank probably has to raise rates more. Would have been nice to see the budget take a little bit of pressure off, cut back government spending a bit more, but we didn't see enough of that in the budget. Unfortunately, most of the spending cutbacks are 2 or 3 years down the track.
Shane Oliver, always good to talk to you. You take care of yourself. You could have a big wedding just around the corner.
You're getting me worried now.
I hope you've been saving.
I've been trying. Bit of a struggle with the cost of living the way it's going up. I remember when I got married, I had certain tasks and I was lucky because some of those tasks just seemed to fall into my lap. My wife said, you find the cars for the wedding, and I wanted convertible Cadillacs. And then it turns out I'm driving along one day near my house and there was a beautiful convertible Cadillac. It had weddings on the back, So I asked the guy, could we use your Cadillac? And sure enough, we did. And he found another Cadillac which didn't have the sign on the back, and we had the two of them, and they were our cars. Beautiful 1968 Cadillac convertibles.
Beautiful. This is a man that still drives a Commodore, and proudly a V8 Commodore.
Well, it is a V8. Well, it's actually Caprice, yeah. I'm like the Ted Bullpit. You remember Ted Bullpit?
Oh, not the Kingswood. Not the Kingswood. I just put a new tennis ball on the tow bar.
Just polish the battery or something. But anyway, there is one episode there.
No, I just missed the Sheen the Venetians.
It's classic. Anyway, he wins the lottery or something. Lottery, whatever.
Yeah.
The person from the shows up with that huge check thing and says, what are you going to do with your money, Mr. Bullpit? And he says, I'm going to upgrade the Kingswood, sad as it is, and I'm going to get a Holden Statesman. Because that was the
top of the range. That was up there with the Ford LTD. The Statesman was the flash. You're 100%. And you did upgrade to a Statesman.
And so that's why I thought, I've got some money. I can afford something now. So I had this Galant. I don't know how I got a Galant. Prior to that was
Chrysler. A Chrysler.
Yeah. Anyway, I then think, well, I'm going to upgrade to a Statesman. For many years I had a sort of my dad got, but this is the funny thing. When you're a kid in the late 70s, the parents tell me, early 80s, whatever, petrol's too expensive. You can't have a big car. You can't have a Holden. Let's go get a VW Beetle. The VW Beetle was a funny looking car, but it kept conking out on me. My dad one day says, let's go off and buy a Holden. And the Holden just kept going and going and going. So I fell in love with Holdens, but then when I got a little bit of money, a decent job, I thought I've got to get a Statesman. So that's what I had. Then they discontinued the Statesman, so we get a Caprice.
Beautiful cars. Beautiful cars. Very luxurious. And I love your loyalty to the Australian car industry, even though it's gone now.
Well, it's gone now. So
all right.
I can't be loyal any longer, unfortunately.
No, you keep buying used Commodores. Hey, listen, Shane Oliver, good to talk to you. Thanks for that, mate.
Thanks, Luke. Take care. Good Lord.
Good Lord.
Stories and laughter that brighten my day. Got the bluesy rhythm, but it's swinging my way. Oh, I got the Luke Bona blues. But they're the kind that chase away the good.
Folks, after our chat with the Reverend Tim Costello a couple of podcasts ago when we were talking about the dangers of gambling, he recommended to me that I meet our next guest, who is an extraordinary woman. And I've done a bit of research on Kate Seselja. Wait till you hear this story, and a lot of you will relate to it, and some of you probably won't understand it, but you will know of somebody who was in a similar position. I guarantee it. I absolutely guarantee it. Now, Kate grew up in a normal household. She was seeing a bloke. I think she was about 18 years of age. And she found herself in one of the many pubs that has a stack of poker machines in it. You know, in Western Australia, you have to get up and travel to a casino before you can play a poker machine. But in New South Wales, they're in your face absolutely everywhere. And I'm not even just talking about the big clubs that have become huge clubs because of the revenue made through the poker machines. But you go to any pub, and once upon a time, there would be a sign there saying VIP room. And absolutely everywhere. Really hard to escape. There would be a dark corner full of smoke and sad, lonely, pale-faced people playing these machines and feeding their hard savings into these things, believing that one day they were going to make it rich. And it's funny because you talk to anyone who's played poker machines and found themselves in trouble, you get behind and you keep trying to play catch-up. And the next one, and the next one. And then you ask yourself, is it about winning money or is it also an addictive experience you go through? Because these poker machines are designed by people who are experts in psychology. And they're programmed not for you to win, but they're programmed to keep you in front of them. Anyway, Kate Seselja, she's been playing the poker machines. And as I said, she was 18, but she moves to Canberra with her family. She's got 5 children. She's pregnant with her 6th. And she finds herself sitting in a dark corner of a club in tears because she knows it's all gone to shit. It's an unbelievably desperate story, but she's fought it with support from her husband and other and support groups around her. And now she talks to groups of people and says, look, you're not alone and there is a way to fight this. And I guess it's kind of like any addiction, whether it be drugs or alcohol, whatever. And if you're not involved in that addiction, it's really hard to understand. But as I said in my introduction, I bet you nearly everyone listening to us now knows, if it isn't you, you'll know of somebody who's been through this. Unless, like a lot of addicts, they keep it secret and lead a double life, which Kate did for a long time. She joins us on the Bonafide podcast right now. What a pleasure to meet you after talking to you on the phone. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here.
I want you to take your time because you've got to get all of this in context. So take us back, and look, you've got all the time in the world, Kate. Take us back to when you were 18 and how it all started.
I think just like so many people in Australia, it's been so normalised that there is gambling everywhere. That is part of the trap, is that you walk into a venue and because it is so easily accessible, you assume that it is a benign experience. At 18, having known nobody in my life at that point that had been impacted by gambling, I sat down at a machine. My boyfriend said, you just slid a 20 in, press the button a few times.
Have a tap.
Yeah, I won. And unfortunately, that is the worst thing that can happen. It is the hook, the bait that makes you develop a positive relationship with a machine.
A relationship. What an interesting word. What an interesting word, Kate.
It is. It's because it's not one that you even consciously think that you are entering into. As I said, you think you're just using a machine, but it is using you in a very intentional, grooming, overwhelming way. This machine has been refined for decades in this country and with a very, very sinister intent to keep you engaged longer, to keep you using your money to maintain that relationship. The worst part is you walk away once you've exhausted all of your funds saying, what's wrong with me? That weaponizing of shame is ultimately what keeps people silent, alone, isolated, bewildered by the experience. Does that make sense?
It does, but I'll get you to elaborate. But I remember back in 1986, I took a group of listeners. I was on the radio in Bathurst, and we took a group of listeners to America. and one of our stop-offs was Las Vegas. And as soon as we landed at the airport, there were poker machines in the airport.
Yes.
And nearly everybody on our tour had to go over and and they were one-arm bandits, they used to call them. They had a lever. And they couldn't wait to play these machines as soon as they got off the plane and were in the airport lounge because it was such a novelty. It was such a novelty. But it's not a novelty in New South Wales because every venue, every licensed venue has a room with poker machines in it. So it's in your face. As I said at the beginning, in WA, it's a trek to get up, get dressed, and go out to the casino.
Yes.
But you haven't got to go very far
in New
South Wales to find one of these things. I want to go back to, so your boyfriend said, look, you put $20 in and have a tap and you won. How much did you win?
It was like about $1,000.
Wow.
I just was sitting there like shaking. My heart was like pounding in my chest. I was so overwhelmed by what was happening. I was like, is this real? Like, how is this happening? And I hit the collect button and this guy came over with a clipboard that you had to sign and this wad of cash, like while I'm still sitting at the machine, and says to me, wow, you're really good at this. I was like, oh. And he goes, oh, you must be really lucky. That, from somebody that worked there, I thought maybe I am good at this. Like it was.
I've got the magic touch.
It gave me that positive reinforcement, just that confirmation of the experience that this is good. This is something you should keep engaging with. Not, oh, look, lady, if I were you, if this is your first experience, I would take that. I would go home. I would never touch this again, because this is the only time you will ever win. If that had have been given to me in context in that moment, if I would have understood, you've just had like your first hit of drugs, it's set your brain off in an unbelievable way, but don't ever go near it again, because you will never repeat that same high. You will never have a constructive relationship with this machine. It will destroy you.
I am going to get to that point, your breaking point in Canberra, in just a little while, but because we've got to lead up to that. So there you are. You've got a massive endorphin dopamine hit on your first go, and $1,000 when you were 18. How long would it have taken you to earn $1,000 after tax?
Weeks.
So it's wow.
Yeah.
So you got your bundle of cash. Did you walk out?
Yeah, that night, yes.
Was it on your mind for the rest of the night?
I couldn't sleep. It was so intoxicating. It's like then you become hyper-focused of your surroundings. And so walking to work, walking to the train station, I'm noticing venues now that I'd never previously noticed. As you said, the signage back then was VIP. So anytime you saw VIP, you knew that there were pokies inside. Boy, even if I left the house thinking I'm going to go catch up with my friends or go to a nightclub, they were there. They were just there everywhere. It was inescapable.
It is almost impossible to escape. I remember when I worked at World Square at Triple M. So the exit of the car park was in Goulburn Street. You turned right down Goulburn Street to come back over the bridge. And I remember one morning I'm waiting for the green light and there was a guy dressed up in his high-vis gear and his work boots on and his lunch esky. And he went into a VIP room at 5:30 in the morning. And I knew he hadn't been up long because his hair was still wet. He was on his way to work. But he goes into a VIP room at 5:30 a.m. It was Scruffy Murphy's. It was the hotel straight across from the exit of the car park at World Square. And I thought, Jesus, who goes to a VIP room at 5:30 in the morning? It was just an observation. Well, it turns out I then got talking to the doorman of these hotels in that area of the centre of Sydney. And I said, when's your biggest rush hour? He said, that time of the morning when Star City closes. Or people who are on their way to work and they want to have a quick tap on their way to work. And I said, how many people in there now? 20? At 5:30 in the morning, Kate. So there's a lot of people there who are hoping to get that quick fix and that dopamine reenactment. And I understand if you win and you think I can continue to make tax-free money. What keeps people playing when they have lost and keep losing and keep losing? Surely the monetary motivation disappears, but no.
No, it's not even the monetary motivation. People don't understand how they've been groomed for it. And the way I describe it to people is it not only hijacks your mind and body in a way that you never consented to, it hijacks your sense of hope. So your hope then rests in the next press, the next bet. And that is where you are hyper-focused for the duration of your experience with this relationship with the machine.
All right, take us through it then. You've had $1,000 win, 18, and you're fixated, obsessed, if I can.
Yeah.
What happens now?
It just took on a life of its own.
Explain that.
It went from me gambling with my boyfriend when we'd be in a venue to me gambling by myself. And whenever I had time, money, opportunity, and as I said, that would occur even if I left the house thinking I'm not gambling today. I'm going to go see a friend or go somewhere else because of the continuous venue on venue on venue on venue, you know, like there's multiple in every suburb. It just felt inescapable. And people that I speak to in New South Wales who are experiencing gambling harm, just that's echoed so loudly that they feel like it's so hard to not encounter them in day-to-day life.
Yeah. So it goes from being a social fun thing with your boyfriend to you gambling on your own. And if I could draw a comparison, and if I'm wrong, you jump all over me, but there are people who are functioning alcoholics, but they hide it. And they don't drink socially at barbecues, dinner parties. They drink on their own, but then hide it. I had a relative, a friend, who was a functioning alcoholic. None of us knew, and it wasn't until she went to hospital to have a child. And another relative was in the house cleaning up and getting the house prepared for her to come home. And they found all these empty bottles of vodka hidden. And they realised, shit, had no idea there was a problem. Is it kind of like that?
Well, it's even easier to conceal than somebody who's dependent on a relationship with alcohol. That, I think, is the most sinister part of it, is you can't smell it on somebody's breath. You can't...
No, you can't smell vodka. See, that's why she was drinking vodka.
Yes. Like if somebody does drink to excess, there are some signs. And I do agree. Some people do conceal it very well. It's even easier to conceal gambling harm.
Yeah, because you're not slurring your words or falling over. Yes,
you can carry on with life as if nothing is impacting you, but mentally you are just absolutely destroyed on a day-to-day basis because you're either verbally bashing yourself up about what has gone on. You can't understand how when you're in your house and you're like, I'm only going to spend this much, it's only going to be this long. But once you're in that environment, all of those go out the window because it is so powerfully addictive. Because it's not something you're actually ingesting, I didn't even know that there was a term behavioural addiction. You know, like experts say that it's even more potent than a substance because it has a direct relationship with your brain rather than it needing a substance to facilitate that interaction. Does that make sense?
It does indeed. It makes perfect sense. And so from the time you were 18 to the time you knew you broke down in Canberra, how many years was that?
15.
So for 15 years you led a double life?
Yes.
How did you hide it?
Sometimes well, sometimes not well.
Take me through it, because help me understand.
The first instance of it getting to crisis point after I married and moved away from Sydney and thinking I'd left all of that behind. We were married, we had our first, we were pregnant with our second, we were just about to start building a house, we were living with my in-laws, we were running our own small business, and all of this is at 23.
And how was living with the in-laws? Was that adding a bit of pressure to life?
Yeah, that was a stressful time, absolutely. We had this money in the account to start the build. When I went to the mothers group that I was a part of, we got told, oh, look, you can't meet at the community centre anymore. You're going to have to find somewhere else to meet. And one of the mums suggested the club because there's a playground for the kids. And it had been a couple of years at that point that I thought, oh, look, that shouldn't be a problem. And
so you hadn't gambled for 2 years. Okay, so the mothers' meeting is transferred to a club, and 2 years you haven't had a gamble.
Yeah.
What happened when you had the meeting at the club?
As soon as I walked in the venue, they were visible and audible. It just reactivated my brain. So I didn't gamble that day. It just kind of lit that fire again. That's why it's so intentional and powerfully destructive that now the industry is using influencers and showing reels and sounds on people's devices because they know that it activates even if you're not in the space.
Please keep educating me because I have plenty of vices, but gambling isn't one of them. And I spoke to the Reverend Tim Costello, and he hates poker machines, but we were talking about the dangers of online gambling and how accessible it is. But we'll stick with pokies because that was your thing. Explain how these machines are programmed and how they work. And I'm talking about the psychology behind them and the features and the lights and all of that stuff. Explain that.
There isn't just casual engagement. If you expose yourself to the reels and looking at them and hearing the sounds, and your brain starts to try and make sense of the engagement, your brain tries to process what it's experiencing, looking for patterns. But this is all intentionally built in the back end. The math behind it is diabolical, that it gives you intentional near misses. It gives you losses disguised as wins. So
explain that. What do you mean losses disguised as wins?
So say you've bet $5 and the lights and sounds will go off like you won, but it's only $2. So it celebrates you losing $3 in a way that's actually registered in your brain as a win. And sometimes that amount, like some people might bet $2 and they get back 10 cents and they're still getting that reward, dopamine reward from 10 cents from losing $2. It's built in. The reels are going at such a rapid rate that you're waiting for positive reinforcement from the sounds of the machine because the reels are going so fast your eyes can't even kind of keep up with it half the time. So it's utilizing all of your senses in a very deliberate and intentional way. If you're losing, you're just pumping money in, it will intentionally put a symbol up with just about the amount that you've lost that you could have almost won a few times to make it seem like the next 10 presses, surely I'm going to win that. So it's just, as I said, all of the design, the intentionally built features that make it powerfully addictive. That's why it's scary at the moment that they've really pushing this group engagement because it's all about the normalization of it. It's all about, come to the venue with 5-10 of your mates, stand around a machine. We've now put a button on each side of the console that you can press so you don't have to reach over so far. This group engagement coupled with the amount of content that is now being pumped on social media, it's all keeping it very active, very normalized in people's, especially young people's brains, that when they are in a different environment, like on their own, in front of that machine, their body knows what to do. Their body knows just keep pushing money in so you can sit here and keep pressing the button longer. When you're away from the venue, you're more driven by chasing losses. But when you're in the zone, it's about time and this relationship with this machine.
Relationship. There's that word again. You build a relationship with the machine because there are people out there that believe they can tell when a machine's about to pay. My ex-father-in-law said, he couldn't tell. He could tell when a machine is about to pay. That's impossible.
It's one of the gambler's fallacies that are talked about often. If you believe you sit there long enough, like it'll be due for a win, or sometimes the numbers or jackpots above the machine can be incredibly misleading. But it's a calculated bet from the venue that it is enough that if you win, it's a giant hook to keep you there. They'll get it back and then some. So it's repurposed bait from somebody else's losses.
And then they also hope if you've had a win, you'll tell your friends exactly where you were.
Yeah.
It's a bit like, the news agencies that will say, we sold the $2 million lottery ticket here, and people will go, oh, I'll buy my ticket there. No, it doesn't increase your odds, but it's kind of like that, hoping that you'll spread the word. Yeah. How many people spread the word that I've done my life savings and you should never touch these things again? How many people say that, I wonder?
I tell you, I've encountered thousands of them in the decade and a bit that I've been in advocacy. It's just heartbreaking, the stories of the destruction that these machines have been able to do. One of the most harrowing moments for me was when I gave one of my first public testimonies.
This is with the Hope Project, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was at a gambling round table that a minister put on, and I shared my story. And then this woman who was about 10 years older than me shared her story, but she shared it from the perspective of she was the daughter of a woman who'd gambled. So she grew up on the floor of a club in rural New South Wales. I sat there thinking, holy crap, how is it that you're older than me and you were harmed before I was born? This has been going on for decades. That gave me that perspective of, oh my word, like how is it that this has been able to continue for such a long time to cause destruction?
Kate, let's just go back a bit. So you've moved in with your in-laws, you have a child, and you and your husband are saving money. You're about to build a house. What happened there?
After that activation at the
childcare, the Mother's Day
group, yeah, I just couldn't get it out of my head. It was like, I'll just use $100 and that's it. That went in a few presses, because when you've been active and had a relationship with the machine, you don't go back to using the machine in a minimal kind of way. So I was doing $10 presses. It just went like that. I'm accessing everything that I could. I ended up going through $30,000 in a month.
$30,000. This is money you and your husband had aside to build your home. There must have been a point where he said, darling, where's the money gone? What happened? Tell us about that.
That was the first time I wanted to take my life. I knew that I had to tell him that this was going on, that I was unable to stop. He didn't understand. He knew that I had gambled before we met and that I'd struggled with it. But when we moved away from Canberra, we thought all that was behind. And yeah, it was just the most difficult conversation I ever had to have with him at that point. His reaction was, oh, so you're not leaving? And I was like, what? Somebody pointed out that when I was that heavily, impacted by it, I was probably withdrawing from the relationship. So in his mind, it looked like I was ready to pack my bags and leave. But I was just trying to deal with the horror show that I was living with my engagement with gambling. And so in his mind, it was a relief to hear that I wasn't leaving him for somebody else. I'd just gone through a bunch of money. So he didn't, not ever, gambling was never his thing. He didn't understand how addicted I was at that point. So his response was, well, just don't do it. Okay, can we just, it's just money. Let's just move on. Don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. There was some relief in that. I was grateful for his compassion, but he was completely ill-equipped to know how to navigate that situation. That's how I'm finding families of people who reach out to me are just so ill-prepared to know how to navigate a loved one who's experiencing gambling harm.
I want to come to that, but the story hasn't finished there. You've admitted to your husband that 30,000 of your hard earned going towards a building project has gone.
Yeah.
You've come out and you've said, I've got a problem. It's been going on for quite some time, but it didn't end there.
No, I wish.
What happened then?
So he took my cards for like a week, but he relied on me to
pay the bills,
do all the things, you know. So in hindsight, it would have been great for us to have an intervention of a financial counsellor at that point and some support around us. But that really wasn't available or in our consciousness that we needed those things. So we just kept battling on, and I'd have periods of, as some might call it, white knuckling it, just pretending like I'm okay, it's fine, it's not impacting me. But anytime there was financial stresses or otherwise in our life, it presented itself as a solution. And that's part of the hijacking of hope, because your brain goes, do you remember that time you put this much in and you won this? That can happen again and you'll get out of this mess. And so it blinds you from being able to see things in a rational way, because a pathway has been carved in your brain so strong that it makes the most logical sense to you. And from an external perspective, if someone's never experienced gambling harm, that doesn't make any logical sense whatsoever. But here we are. When you're in it, I promise you, it's horrifying that your brain keeps going to this default setting this machine has planted in your brain.
So you've come clean with your husband. He takes the cards away, but then you have to have them back because you're in charge of the family's paying of the bills and the running of the house. So what happened then? You kept going.
10 years of horror.
10 years you kept going.
Yeah.
And you kept it a secret from your husband. Surely with all that money going missing, he must have known you were still gambling, didn't he?
It was like
10 years.
The only way I can make sense of it is we were both entrenched in trauma at that stage. From his perspective, it's called betrayal trauma. You kind of are in existence mode. You never know whether the person is being truthful or not. I'm equally traumatized by him unresourcefully using shame to try and control my behavior. Like, if you didn't gamble, we would have had money for this. Or if you didn't, so even if I wasn't gambling, it was being thrown in my face. We were just in this cycle of unhealthy ways of coping with what we'd been exposed to and had no resources to know how to navigate differently.
I'm sorry if this is making you upset. Do you need to take a break? You okay?
Yeah. It's important because it's real, and people that are, helping on a day-to-day basis. It's me connecting with the stories that I'm still hearing, that people are still existing in, and it's not okay that this is happening. Like, it was horrible that I lived it, but it's unforgivable that it's still continuing today. This is 15 years on from when I experienced it. Families are breaking down in our suburbs because there are no safeguards to stop this from happening to others. And that's why I fight and do what I do, because I know how hard it is to live it. And I'm angry that our state and federal governments are not doing anything to protect the well-being of Australians from gambling harm.
Well, they love the revenue. It's a bit like, why don't they just ban cigarette smoking? Just keep increasing the excise. Just before we talk about how your relationship, because you've talked about the stress that this gambling problem had on your relationship, and if you're up for it, take us back to that hot, humid January day in Canberra, and you were sitting in front of a machine, and your husband rang. Can you tell us that story?
That evening was just the kind of combination of everything all at once, and me just being so mentally, physically, emotionally destroyed from the experience. And I just got to the end of knowing how to continue to breathe. And the way I describe it to people is what you don't know when you walk into a venue that first time is when those glass doors close behind you, you actually, if you experience gambling harm, that's the point where you get sealed into a plastic bag of shame. And that plastic bag only has a certain amount of oxygen inside of it. And in January 2012, I'd all but run out of oxygen in my plastic bag of shame. And what that does is it keeps you separate from others. It makes you feel like you are not normal like other people. It distorts your perspective of life, of finances, of relationships, of money. Like it distorts your view of yourself, let alone being able to connect in a meaningful way. That evening, I just had no words left. It also was because at that point I'd reached out for help several times and it was not good help. That's another reason why I've been so involved in trying to improve help services for people experiencing gambling harm. It was terrible, the things that I was told or not supported in. So I was left ultimately thinking, I am the problem. All I'm ever going to do is cause harm to my family. So I don't deserve to be here anymore. I just sat there crying, thinking, how can I take my life and not harm my child? Because I didn't want anything to happen to her. I just wanted to just not exist anymore. And when I finally answered the phone, I think if my husband had yelled at me, I probably wouldn't be talking to you now, but he just said, please come home. And I think it was such a pivotal shift for our relationship because for some reason he finally was able to step out of the pain, the betrayal trauma that he was experiencing and see clearly that I was not okay. And he recognized that he was in a fight for my life at that point. And yeah, it's why people experiencing gambling harm are 5 times more likely to take their life than any other addiction, because you fundamentally are groomed into this shame spiral that makes you feel like you're profoundly broken, when the reality is I used that machine exactly how it was designed to be used. I am the ideal customer of a predatory industry. And yet I was gaslit into thinking I couldn't use it appropriately or I couldn't use it responsibly as the gaslight tagline of industry. The reality is this is an apex predator in our social environment, and we've been totally missing the mark in understanding that these machines exist to harm members of our community in order to subsidise cheap schnitzels and expansion of venues and individual profits. You know, it's gross.
How did you and your husband work through this? Because you were talking earlier about relationships and the pressure this can put on relationships. How did it all work out?
We're still together.
Wow. And you're here, and you're here.
I am here. And we have a granddaughter. We have 6 amazing, incredible children that we're so grateful for. And we have so much to be grateful for, the healing that has been able to be achieved and the grace in rebuilding trust. And I don't think either of us felt like it was possible at that point, but it is. And I think what that has represented to families and what I reinforce with people that I've helped is right now, when you're in crisis, it feels like everything is so hard and so impossible to know how to navigate through. But the most important thing is to connect to safety. For a lot of people, that is achieved by just disclosing to someone and having no one judge what they're saying, It's why lived experience in this environment is so crucial, that people feel seen and heard and met with compassion and not judgment or ridicule. They've spent 10, 15, I've had people reach out to me that have been impacted by gambling harm for 60 years and have never told a soul.
Wow.
Until they reached out to me. And like the privilege of that, of being able to utilize the most harrowing years of my life to provide hope and connection and safety for others, is why I do what I do. It was so isolating when I was in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate that it continues today.
Can you walk into a club or a pub now, hear the noises, see the lights and walk away? Or does it still trigger you?
It's that I understand its power now. The way I describe it to people is it's not ever going to be safe. It doesn't matter how much time and space you have away from it. It's never going to be safe. When I sit with people and they're like, oh, I just want to have, want to be able to have a drink with my friends. I'm like, you're trying to normalize putting poison in your body. That's the same as you're trying to normalize having a relationship with a machine that we were never built to withstand. This isn't something that you should be able to manage or navigate. It's a toxic product, period. And it will only cause you harm. I can be in that environment, but I don't choose to put myself in that environment.
So the environment still makes you anxious?
It's disgusting. It isn't a healthy environment for anybody. That's the point, is we keep trying to normalize poison.
Yeah, you at the beginning of our chat, you used the word diabolical.
Yes, it is. The way that, as you said, that calling it a VIP room, think about that vernacular that we are saying to people, it's the exploitation of human connection that is gross. We have a need to connect, and unfortunately they've worked out how to monetize connection with a machine.
Yeah. I remember talking to a doorman outside one of these venues that had these machine room. And I said to him, has business dropped off since New South Wales legislation said you've got to take away the flashing lights, the waterfall of coins, of lights out the front, even Chinese symbols and statues, which was an indication because they target the Chinese in the centre of Sydney.
Absolutely.
And he said, no, business has not dropped off at all.
Oh.
I guess it's a bit like the plain packaging or the warning signals on cigarettes. If you're going to smoke, you're going to ignore those warning signals. I want to hear about the Hope Project, and we can steer people in that direction. What's your advice? And tell me about the Hope Project.
Well, I never ever thought that this would be what I do. As you pointed out in the beginning, I kept it secret because I was so afraid of what people would think of me. When I realised how shame had been used to weaponize and keep me silent and keep me thinking I was the problem, the most radical thing I could do was to be the opposite of shame and to help be able to bring words and knowledge to people who are experiencing it, who think there's something wrong with me. Why can't I stop? In sharing my story, it's just kind of evolved from that point. I'm now invited to consult on policy, not that much has shifted in that space. We keep pushing, so changing it from the top down, trying to address it at a legislation and policy level, educating communities, schools, workplaces, bringing it into the everyday and talking about it, because as you said, most people either know of someone who's experienced gambling harm, or they might be in a work environment and have absolutely no idea that there are colleagues all around them that are experiencing it and had absolutely no idea. And unfortunately, when no one talks about it, most people only find out when either all the money's gone or the person is dead.
And luckily you're here. The money's gone, but you're here and your 6 children are here and you're a grandma. How much do you reckon you lost all up?
15 years of my life that I'll never get back. The hundreds of thousands of dollars that I lost had to, I was talking to a 24-year-old the other night, said, you have to make peace with the loss, because if you continue to focus on what you lost, you're orienting backwards. You're not orienting towards building a future that you want, trapped by regret. And that's what fuels you going back. So trying to make sense of the money that's gone, it's gone. There's no point chasing it anymore.
Yeah. I understand. Yeah. Has your husband, obviously, he stopped guilt shaming you?
Yes.
Yeah. He learned that it was pointless.
Yes.
And it wasn't going to get the money back. It was just making you feel even shittier.
Absolutely. It's about how do we come together to fight this industry? And that's how families become empowered. They wrap around the person who's experiencing gambling harm and they don't see them as the enemy.
Yeah.
They correctly name the enemy, and it's the industry. It's so vital that people don't continue to weaponize shame against people who are experiencing gambling harm.
You are an incredibly brave, courageous woman, and I feel so much richer for talking to you. Thank you so much. And there is a gambling hotline. I don't know if it works, but we'll put it on the screen. And there's Lifeline, which is there 24/7, and it's free. But thank God you're here. And thank you so much. As I said at the beginning, there'll be people watching this that don't relate because they haven't got a gambling problem, but I bet you they know someone that does. Or chances are they're close to someone who does and they don't know it.
Yes. Well,
what are the signs we should look out for?
It's they don't know somebody who's experiencing gambling harm. It's not that the person has a problem.
Yeah, that's the harm.
It's addiction by design. Language is really, really important, and it's something that my colleagues at GLEE, which is Gambling Harm Lived Experience Experts, have, we've really led the way in changing narratives in our help services, in our communities, to talk about gambling in a way that correctly frames it so that people don't unresourcefully use industry language. That's really, really vital. So when I'm working with my GLEE colleagues, running trainings or meeting with ministers, we're always picking up on the way things are framed and helping to guide the right narratives in a public setting, because it really, really matters. So if you're trying to help somebody who you think may be impacted by gambling harm, pointing them towards, glee.org or the hopeprojectaustralia.com.au, helping them to feel safe, that it's okay to talk about what they're experiencing, helping them to realise we're the nation most harmed by gambling in the world per adult population. So they're not alone in their distress, and that this is addiction by design. If you help them understand that this is how the app or the machine or the sports betting website has been designed to manipulate you. So
fleece you.
Yes. Even if you're not thinking about gambling, gambling is coming for you. And it is coming for our children as well, which is the most distressing part. The number of underage children last year that gambled was 600,000 children are able to access gambling products, either the way that especially the online and sports betting markets have moved from targeting young men to targeting women to now targeting children is horrific. They just keep coming for new custom.
Yeah. I have discussed that at length with the Reverend Tim Costello. It's in your face whether you want it or not. Kate Seselja, thank you so much for your story. Thank you for still being here. And you think about how many lives you've saved with your story and the work that you're doing. Congratulations, you're a star.
No, I'm just a human being who is passionate about helping other human beings who are trapped in distress. That's it.
Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Truckie Tuesday is up next, and it's all made possible thanks to GME, the Aussie experts in communication tech for over 65 years. 10-4 good buddies. Whether you're passing vital road info onto the convoy, calling out a hazard ahead, or telling old mate to get off Channel 40 because it ain't a bloody karaoke bar, GME's got the gear to keep your connection steady and crystal clear. Truckie Tuesday is straight ahead. Time for another Truckie Tuesday where we talk about all things roads, safety, and the plight of truckies and truckettes, and also everyone else that shares the road. And Rod Hannafy joins me again. Rod, thank you so much. Where are you today?
Mr. Bona, I'm visiting Dubbo. Yes, first time in 2 weeks, but I'll be back on the road again tonight.
Can I ask you a personal question, but it's poignant?
Mm-hmm.
Did your wife recognise you?
Oh, the dog didn't bite me, although I must admit I haven't even seen the backyard yet, so that's next. Maybe he still will.
Rod, we've got a few issues to get through, but first of all, a very special guest and someone I've been looking forward to talking to for a long time. Her name is Belinda Hughes. She is a lawyer. Hughes Law, you can look it up. And she was the chief prosecutor with the NHVR, but now she has her own legal service. I've got so many questions for her, and I know you do too, Rod. And so can I give a very warm Bonafide welcome to Belinda Hughes.
Good morning. How are you both?
We're both very, very well. And it's lovely to meet you, even if it is via the podcast. So thank you so much.
No, really appreciate being invited on. I think it's a great opportunity and hopefully your listeners get something out of it.
I know that now you're in private practice, Hughes Law, it's opened up a whole new world for you. But when you were the chief prosecutor with the NHVR, did you find that fulfilling? Why did you leave?
Yeah, no, I love the role. Absolutely love the role. Probably love the industry. It was my first time really in a role where you could collaborate with industry in relation to prosecutions. So look, I loved the role. I received an opportunity to go over to Papua New Guinea, effectively set up the prosecutions for the brand new ICAC in Papua New Guinea. So that was the only reason I left. I did have that amazing opportunity and thought I'd regret it if I didn't.
So you do still specialise in traffic law, criminal law and transport law. A very good friend of mine, another great friend of this podcast, is James Glisson, a lawyer, and he was a uniformed police officer for 3 years. And while he was walking the beat, he studied law. And then he was with the DPP, but now he's a criminal defence lawyer. And so he's kind of seen it from all angles. Are you kind of looking at life through different angles now?
Yeah. So I had similar. I spent 13 years in the police, left as a sergeant, and then spent some time at Transport for New South Wales, leading their prosecutions, then at NHVR, and now I defend. And people say to me, they go, how do you do it after, 18 years prosecuting? My response is quite easy. It's really, really enjoyable. It's a great industry. I think there needs to be some strong advocacy in the defence side, and I'm hoping that the people are finding I'm bringing that.
I'm going to let our mate Rod Hannafy take over for a little bit here because I know there's lots of questions he would like to ask you on behalf of the trucking industry. But Rod, am I going over the top, or am I fairly correct here that the feedback over the many years you and I have been talking, a lot of truckies believe the NHVR was overzealous and concentrating on things that really didn't involve safety, but prosecuting truckies, handing out massive fines that couldn't be sustained by them personally or even their companies, and that the NHVR was, and this is only the feedback I've been getting, Rod, that the NHVR was, once again, overzealous and on many occasions completely unfair. Rod, is that unfair of me to presume that?
Look, in one way it is, Luke. The NHVR police the law. They don't write the law.
Sure.
And as a perfect example, the NTC has gone to transport ministers and increased all the fines recently to a level that is completely onerous, unrealistic and unsustainable. So the NHVR were given the task to police it. Now, to be completely fair, back in the day before the NHVR, we dealt with each state road authority, we dealt with each state police force, and each of them did it their own way. When the NHVR came in, and I was at one of the very early meetings, and they spoke about it sort of becoming the national regulator, and yes, we'll clarify it's not. We have the East and the West. We have WA and NT who are not involved in the NHVR, but the rest of the states are. The NHVR said, and to this day, they have said that mantra is still in place, that their intent is to educate and inform and then enforce. And I would say that the majority of drivers I have spoken to have said that they have stuck with that. Of course, there are individuals, and if a truck driver is stupid enough to jump out of the truck and launch off at the bloke that's pulled him up with a mouthful of abuse, well, then he's probably going to get something back. But if he gets out and he says, "Good morning, mate, how's it going?" and they have a discussion and he's made a slight mistake, many drivers say they will be educated and informed to do it better and let on their way. If they've done, 27 mistakes on one page or in the last 27 pages, well, then they're likely to get a ticket, and that's probably deserved. The biggest problem, Luke, is the fact that the police, who are often not properly trained, don't understand our law, and yes, they turn up to terrible incidents and they probably don't want to see as many of them as they do. They tend to go a little bit harder. And of course, they're different to the NHVR. So each state police commissioner controls what they do. Whereas at least with the NHVR, we can go to them and say, as a national group, as I said before, half on the side, that, this is how we believe we should be treated. And I think they've done that. I think they've been fairer than the individual states were previously. But I fear, and look, I've written to state police commissioners, everyone in Australia, and said, this is the NHVR's mantra. Are you happy to follow it? I even suggested that we had like a 3 strikes policy. So in the front of your logbook, they could write that I pulled Rod up on the 27th of February and I warned him because he forgot to tick that box, and we got 3 warnings. But the police said they can't do that. Each individual officer, and here's the biggest problem, can interpret the law to their design, and that doesn't always work. Now, look, we hope the majority of police officers are good blokes and give us a fair go. There's some who seem to think they work for the Gestapo, which is a bit sad. But then, to be fair, mate, there are truck drivers that do the wrong thing, and if they launch out of the truck with abuse, well, then they're probably going to cop it back. So, yes, it's changed. It's not perfect. But, of course, what Belinda sees is the outcome. So I get pulled up and, look, again, we go back to the HVNL review. We then had a review of the review. So after 9 years, I pulled up on the way to Perth and I talked to Ken Kanowski, and he said, where drivers say these fake tickets and these bullshit tickets, he said, coming from the police, he said, that doesn't happen, does it? And, of course, after a stunned moment of silence, I said, who told you that, Ken? Well, the police did. Oh, so have you spoken to many truck drivers? I know just you and a couple of others. I said, well, you're going to get a lot of differing views, and there are drivers who have been, I suppose, mercilessly given tickets for something that has nothing to do with road safety. And that's where Belinda comes in. So a driver gets a ticket and he says, but this is not fair or reasonable. And the biggest problem, Luke, is they pull me up in Victoria. They know I live in Dubbo. They say, here's a ticket, mate. If you don't like it, take it to court. Now, it's very easy for them to say that, but then I've got to take 2 days off to go to the court, and I've got to pay someone to go for me and all of those costs, and they know generally that you won't fight it, whereas Belinda has the option now, given that she believes that there is a miscarriage of justice, or that the fine and the penalty is not justified by the offence, and she can go and do something about that. So I spoke to Belinda during the week. I've referred someone to her, and Belinda, you'll get another phone call on Monday from another bloke who rang me with a bit of a problem, something to do with a pole and $93,000 that he didn't think he was going to get a bill for. So I've suggested he contact you. But you and I spoke about sort of how these things work, and I've asked, is there perhaps a couple of examples you might give, and from your position too, some advice that you might offer to drivers in how to behave. And look, it only came up in conversation with someone a couple of days ago I actually wrote a column years ago in Own a Driver, and I normally write the column, send it in, and they come up with the title. And the title they put on the magazine was Sir or Shithead. That was the title. And the reason it came up is because in America, there is actually an instruction to police officers that when they first pull you up on the side of the road, they are to be respectful and courteous and all that sort of stuff. And if you're the idiot that goes off after that, well, that's your problem. But look, even in the last 2 days, I've had two blokes say they pull you up, license and logbook, and that's how it starts. So, of course, the driver's already offset and worried what's going to happen and those sorts of things. So, Belinda, you've seen both sides. You've helped a number of drivers. And look, there's a couple of people out there as well, and it's been something that in the past we had to go to our local solicitor who knew nothing about transport law a lot of the time. And a lot of the time it cost us money to get perhaps not even a really good result. But you've got the knowledge and the experience. You say you have a passion for the industry, and that's something we share. So from your point of view, is there something that we as drivers can do better? And are there a couple of examples that you can highlight for us to sort of hopefully wean our way out of trouble on the road? But then if we don't, we'll be giving you a call.
Yes, yeah, thanks. I've got a few examples in front of me of existing clients. It's interesting. I've got one from the NHVR, two from New South Wales Police, and a quick example from Queensland Police. I say this to everybody. All the conversations are recorded these days with body-worn video. Unfortunately, some of the officers or some of the inspectors can get the drivers quite comfortable, and they forget pretty much that they're being recorded. And so when comments are made like, yeah, I saw that load like that, but I hadn't had a chance to pull over, and that was 2 hours ago, that gets pulled out of your 1 hour conversation. That little sentence gets pulled out and put into what we call the fact sheet, which is what the court sees. So what that does is actually aggravate the offence because it's been existing, and you know it's been existing for 2 hours. But instead, if that comment hadn't been made, then the court wouldn't necessarily be aware of that and wouldn't be sentencing you on those facts. So be really careful what you say roadside. I would prefer nothing is said, but be really, really careful because it will absolutely be used against you. So don't take it for granted. We've had a number of times where the body worn, the fact sheets say the driver said X, Y, Z.
Yes.
And then we get the body worn and we compare it, and the driver didn't say that. So you just got to be really careful what that fact sheet says, because that is what the judge reads and sentences you on. But let me just give you an outrageous example. I'm actually doing this matter for free just because it is so outrageous. This driver was in Queensland. He pulled over to get a cup of coffee, had about an 8-minute break, no requirement to have a break, he just wanted a cuppa. The police officer happened to be at the rest stop, pulled him in and had a look at his phone and said, well, you didn't record this rest.
Which he's not required to do by law, that's right.
$206 ticket, and quite unbelievable.
And demerits?
Actually, I haven't had a look if it carries a demerit because it's a Queensland.
That's outrageous.
Yeah, so yes. We'll have a look at that. But it's a $200 fine, but there's a bit of a principle here. He's having additional rest over what he's required to. He's not at that point required to have a rest break. He was only 2 hours into his work time, and he's been infringed for it. So
look, under the law, any break less than 15 minutes is not deemed a break. So he's done the right thing. He hasn't pulled up for 12 minutes and then tried to squeeze a break in and cheat the law. He simply knows the law says I've only pulled up for 8 minutes, therefore I can't write it down, so I'm not going to. I've just had this break, me coffee, and I'm off. And the copper disagrees. And again, that's where they don't know the law themselves half the time.
But it's outrageous. And then this bloke, I mean, you're doing it pro bono. Could I say pro Luke Bona? You're doing it pro bono, and that's very kind of you. But for anyone else, they'd have to pay for legal representation, take time out to go to court to fight something, and then at the end of it, what happens? You know, it is outrageous.
Look, and the thing is, I think it's a bit of a. We can do court without drivers, and I try to, because if you can proceed, you've got legal representation, you've given them instructions. I also don't want you to lose a day's work when you're paying for me to be at court. So there are ways that we can do it in a cost-effective way. But
what if the infringement's in Queensland and your hometown's Adelaide? And you've got to go to Queensland to go to court. I mean, God, since COVID, we all knew Zoom worked. But anyway.
Another example I've got is a fellow, he's been pulled over by New South Wales police, and he's got 27 charges. He's failed to record the kilometres between one section, 86 times not record odometer reading. This is the worst one I think I've seen. Driver not give information to record keeper as prescribed, times 16. Driver not write the place of work and rest change. He's gone over 6 months worth of his diary and just pulled out the what I call administrative technical breaches, not ticking boxes, not adding up the hours. The only rest breach is a minor.
So what was the slug that if he'd got the penalty for each of those fines? I imagine that would have been pretty substantial.
I think I added it up to almost $200,000 that he'd be facing as a maximum penalty on the existing fines.
Yes.
Now, just as a comparison, I still do a bit of criminal law defence. Now, if you threaten to kill your wife, for example, you're facing a maximum penalty of $5,500. You can also face imprisonment, but the fine amount is $5,500. So that's to stalk or intimidate. Now, I'm looking at a fellow that's been charged by the NHVR. Now, he's been charged for 9 offences. His maximum penalty is $145,000. Just one of for example, a solo driver work more than standard, he's facing a $20,000 maximum penalty. So he will be in the same courtroom as somebody who has committed domestic violence, which we know is an issue in the community everywhere. The guy committing the domestic violence, $5,500 is his maximum fine, but you go over a few hours in your work diary and you're facing $20,000.
Or now, under the new laws, if you fail to have a logbook with you, the maximum court fine is $13,000, and yet that's sort of 10% on the road, so that's $1,300. And there are a number of others. Yes, we agree they have reduced some of the penalties. They reduced 21, but they increased 50. The ones they increased, they didn't increase by a bit. They increased more than double. And the NTC told me that was because the minor fines didn't look really bad compared to the major.
Yeah.
But even the old penalties were still way above what you're talking about there, Belinda. And I said, well, the minor ones should never have been that. And if we go back to the days where we did get a differentiation, like in the past, if you forgot to do anything in Queensland, it was $600. You left one box out, you didn't put a date. It didn't matter whether it was road safety related or otherwise, it was $600. That was back in the day. And then we got, when the NHVR came in, or even before that, we got a differentiation between what is a fatigue breach and a clerical error. And that started out at $175. I said, make it $50. They started out at $150. It's slowly gone up with CPI. And I'm sure everybody's forgotten too that these new fines that they've just brought in, double the current rate, will also go up every year with the CPI. So that's something to look forward to. But the problem was, of course, that when the police get to that point, they now say, anything above the line on the top of your logbook, that's a fatigue breach. That's a deliberate intent to deceive. So they can still hit you with a bigger fine of $800 instead of the $200 as a clerical error. And yet, like you say, if you leave the date off, we can't just make days disappear. Like yesterday was Tuesday and tomorrow's Thursday, so today's got to be Wednesday. The fact I didn't tick the box doesn't change the day, does it?
I just question what is the safety risk here? Yes, there is perhaps for the overtime or failing to have the appropriate rest, but where it's failing to record an odometer reading or the name and place of work, like honestly, or ticking the BFM box. Like, I know from being in the police, there is a perception that you see a truckie get a work diary, you're always going to get a breach. Mm-hmm. You're always going to get something. That's certainly some of the police's attitude, but I'd like to see they move away from that and they start talking about, well, if you've got some issues in a work diary where it is significant and you feel like it needs to be going before the court, well, what else can you do in relation to the driver? How did they get in that situation? Do they understand the work diary? Perhaps consider talking to them about an EWD, or there's options under sentencing that they don't even get a fine, but instead receive a course, go and do a work diary course online, or it's clearly not a safety risk if they're failing to record an odometer reading 86 times. Yeah. That's clearly a clerical error, and some training and instruction could help that.
Belinda Hughes, can I just jump in? Can I ask you a question? Yep. As a bystander? Would the universal use of electronic work diaries take away a lot of this confusion and ambiguity?
Look, I think so. My concern is the way that the NHVR is proposing now to manage the EWD schemes where the data is being centrally stored. So I have some concerns about it. I do think it's a great option for those that sort of struggle with the paper diary and the clerical understanding of it. But the EWD, I'm told, can give you a few more minutes as well because it is so accurate. Yeah, look, it would save at least some of these headaches, I think.
You know, a UHF isn't just an accessory. It's a lifeline. It's exactly why I'm stoked to have GME on the Bonafide podcast. They're the only Australian manufacturer of UHF CB radios and emergency beacons, operating right out of a purpose-built HQ in Sydney. You want to know how many locals they keep in steady work? 250. And the gear they build doesn't just keep the Bonafide family safe on the road. It's engineered specifically to handle the bull dust, the corrugations, and the longest hauls you can throw at it. If you love Truckie Tuesday, back the brand that backs us. Head over to gme.net.au. That's gme.net.au. Links are in the description. Let's get back to the chat.
Mate, in the States, there is actually they're called ELD, electronic logging devices in America, and they were made mandatory. There is currently quite a big pushback against ELDs in America. I haven't gone into the detail, but I've noticed it sort of more prevalent recently. I think Canada's taken it on as well now as mandatory. And there are blokes here that simply don't want to have a device on their phone. What happens if your phone goes flat? What if you drop it and run over it? Then you haven't got a logbook. What happens if any of those things happen? And whilst it is better for many, and I'm using one, and I'm using Hubfleet, and I've been very happy with it. Again, there is still penalties available. The fact that they can only sort of store 28 days data in your EWD here, as opposed to 100 pages in your logbook. And as Belinda said, they went back 6 months in his logbook to find all those offences. And there are 27 pages of instruction in the front of the logbook. So if you can tell anybody, mate, here's your logbook, just quickly read that, mate, and then get going, get into Melbourne for tomorrow, will you, mate? We're in a bit of a hurry. Make sure you get it right. Don't screw it up. And if you do, by the way, it's all on you. And when you sign it, you're admitting your own guilt anyway. So you're actually putting yourself in the position to be deemed guilty. Now, there's a lot of blokes used to say you could sign the bottom of the book, E&OM. What is error and omissions excluded, E&OE? Again, that doesn't cover you off because you've signed it as a record. But something with 27 pages of instruction is not simple. And as Belinda says, unfortunately, there are some blokes who think, oh, well, I'll find something in it. I'll go back till I find it. I'll knock you off on that one. Now, most blokes are only going to do one and let you go. I've had many people ask me, Luke, when a police officer or the NHVR pull you up, they used to sign your logbook. So they used to write, Fred Nurk has pulled this driver up on the Hume Highway at such and such a time and date.
Yeah.
And when the next copper pulled you up, he then assumed that from prior to that past signature, the other copper had checked that and it was all good. But there are still ones who will go right back to the very first page in your book if they can't find something. And as Belinda has said, and we have argued, that is not road safety, and nor is a $200,000 penalty for minor mistakes in a book when he's done everything else right. Is that road safety? And that was what I said, that if you compare our penalties and fines to other road offences, let alone those involving threats to life, mate, we're just, it's unfathomable to the average driver that that's how we are treated. And when the public see that and they see these increase in fines, and a driver who might have been going to come into the industry looks at that and says, I can be fined $1,300 on the side of the road because I forgot my book, or I can be taken to court for a maximum offence of $13,000 simply for not having your logbook with you. Is that road safety? There is no way known.
Belinda?
I couldn't agree more. And I was just actually thinking it'd be actually nice to see some incentives for drivers, because in my experience, drivers, they're not the best paid career out there at all, and they're facing these incredibly significant fines. I've had a driver who was charged, never been to court before, absolutely petrified, lost days and days of sleep. His company, supported him and they were the ones that arranged for us to appear for him. But we ended up getting him a non-conviction order at court and he burst into tears.
Yeah.
This is a man who's been on the road for 40 years and incredibly experienced driver, made one mistake and he's before the court facing a $20,000 maximum penalty.
Wow.
Wondering how he's going to be able to afford anything like this fine. That's why it's so rewarding defending now. I'm defending good people that have just stuffed up. They've just made a mistake. We all make mistakes. But the guys that are making mistakes in the transport industry are facing massive, massive fines. It's quite incredible, the fines that they face when we go to court.
Well, that fine you just mentioned, what, $20,000. Give us an example of some of the outrageous fines.
If you're solo driver, restless and standard minimum time critical, that's a $20,590 fine.
Sorry, what was it?
So that's if you don't have enough rest. So this particular driver had 5.5 hours rest rather than 7 hours. And the added complexity, Luke, is there's this technical, it's called the overlapping 24-hour period. So a driver might be okay for a 12-hour period, but then depending on what time that they have their maximum rest or minimum rest, it can potentially reset another 24-hour period. So it's quite, when I have drivers with these matters and I'm trying to explain it to the court, judges take some time to consider and understand this, let alone drivers without a law degree understanding this overlapping 24-hour period. So they may not, and my point in saying this is they may actually not be tired at all. It's just that the technicality of the overlapping 24-hour periods means that at law, they haven't had sufficient rest. In those circumstances, they're still facing a $20,590 fine.
Tell me this, Belinda, the judges that are seeing these cases, do they have much experience in transport regulation and transport law?
Look, they largely deal with crime in the local courts. I went and presented to them when I was at the NHVR. So I went and spoke to all the magistrates across New South Wales and South Australia on the heavy vehicle national law so that they could have some understanding, particularly around the primary duty offences, prepared what's called a judicial guide. So I know that some judges pull that guide out, they used to tell me, to assist them. It's got some like cheat sheet in there. It's publicly available. Anyone can access it, but it's also on the judge's bench book system. That's about it. They really do rely heavily on the prosecutor, and they rely heavily on the fact sheet, which is why it's really, really important to review that fact sheet and make sure it's accurate, because that is what the judge is going to accept.
So, Belinda, what about the other states? You said South Australia and New South Wales. Did you try and get it into the other states? And I suppose two things I'd ask you. I've had so many drivers say they got the ticket in the mail, and now, of course, it comes on your phone, and it's had the wrong rego or the wrong street address or the wrong spelling of the name or the something wrong with the ticket. And, of course, they've then written back and said, well, this has a mistake in the ticket. You know, may I have the ticket reviewed or withdrawn? And the answer every time is, oh, no, we'll just rewrite the ticket for you. But we're not allowed to make that mistake and rewrite it on the side of the road. We're not given that chance. So how often do you see that? And having said that you've sort of done that for the magistrates in two states, how often do you see where the magistrate simply doesn't like truck drivers? Now, that it does happen, whether his daughters run off with one or one cut him off on the way to work that morning, we don't know. And it's a bit like how you behave on the side of the road. If you jump out of the truck with a mouthful of abuse, you're probably going to get it back. But, the majority of them, as you say, would probably be sick to death of seeing all these minor infringements turn up for court. And that's where, of course, the police know that we don't always have the time and the ability. And look, if it's a minor fine, so often people will say, and the perfect example, of course, was Kieran and his parking ticket. Luke, you might have seen a little while ago, a truck driver in a tanker full of fuel, pulled up, went to bed. He was operating legally within the law, the HVNL. He parked somewhere that was safe and out of the way, so it wasn't in a no-standing zone or somebody's driveway or anything like that. And the council officer came along and gave him a $120 ticket, and he fought it. It took quite some time. Belinda got it through and got it rescinded, and yet we have that trouble with every council. And look, I even had someone the other day, Belinda asked me how we fix this, and my understanding is the law says that depending on what state you're in, it's either we can't park for more than 1 hour in either a built-up area, which is an area with a guttering, and I think one of the states use street lighting. So, those things, Luke, where you pull up, you go to bed, and they either wake you up and say, you can't park here for more than an hour, so they've destroyed your sleep, and yet you're not affecting anybody. But that's just another one of those laws we've got to fix. Do you see many police and things, and how do we help the magistrates to give us a fair go, Belinda?
Yeah, well, just on that case, it was interesting because the council worker actually said in evidence when I was cross-examining her that had she realised he was asleep, she wouldn't have given him the ticket. And I said, well, what did you expect him to do? And she said, just put a little sign at the front. So I'm not sure if that's going to be
driver asleep in truck.
Yeah. But, the judges, I know NHVR, before I left, we'd arranged to speak to the Queensland magistrates. So hopefully they would have that sort of understanding as well. But it's really important that if you're going to go to court, you get a representative who understands this law. I see a lot in court that don't, and huge fines are issued. There's quite a number of firms now that do have some expertise in the heavy vehicle national law. I would just urge, if you are facing one of these charges, to get somebody who knows what they're talking about, because you need your lawyer to be speaking more confidently about this than the prosecutor so that they listen. If you get somebody who's not confident, then the judge will just listen to the prosecutor. You just reminded me of a funny case. It was not funny in that he's been charged, but the cops actually given him a ticket because he couldn't understand the writing in the work diary.
Right.
But then I looked at what's called the field court attendance notice, that little yellow slip that police give. And I'm going, so is court on the 4th or the 9th? I can't work it out. And we couldn't even work out his writing on the field camp. And I'm like, that's a bit hypocritical.
You needed a pharmacist to read his writing.
Doctor.
It was that bad. And I thought, well, there's my Exhibit A. I'm going to hand that up.
Unbelievable. So you do need good representation. What about truckies or trucking companies that are worried that the cost of the legal representation might outweigh the fine?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, I have big companies, I have small companies, and I have drivers that pay $200 into my trust account over a period of time. We adjourn the proceedings that they can save up the money. I mean, there's always different options to do it, but once you get a significant penalty on your record, the court looks at that and then lifts it from there on. So if you go in and you get, a $3,000 penalty for your first offence, then if you get another one, and the realistic chances are, if you're on the road for a very, very long time, which truckies are, your chances of being pulled over and being infringed for something are significantly higher than anybody else. So if you get a $3,000 fine to start with, the judge looks at that, and sentencing is a bit like a sentencing ladder. It goes up every time you go in. That's not always the case, but it's the general rules. When I get involved with matters, I go, oh, geez, you got whacked a bit here on this penalty. What happened there? And they go, oh, we weren't too worried about it, and then we ended up with a $5,000 fine, and so now I'm trying to argue for a non-conviction order when they've already received a $5,000 fine. It's difficult, but it's not impossible.
Listen, this is absolutely fascinating, and we've got to get you back on again. And I would love a separate chat with you, Belinda, on your amazing career. Prosecuting bikies, working in the police force. You are an amazing individual, and it's been such a pleasure. I've got to ask you both something. I've got two more questions. Have you got time, Belinda?
Yeah.
There has been an ongoing debate, and it's an interesting debate, especially on double demerit weekends, where in most states, we'll stick with New South Wales, you get 13 demerit points to play with, but professional drivers get 14. And the debate has always been, should professional drivers, and this isn't just truckies, it's taxi drivers, delivery drivers, anyone who drives for a living, should they get an extra point, or should they be the same as the rest of us because they should know better? The argument for the extra point is you're on the road more and there's more chance that something might go wrong. The argument against is professional drivers are exactly that, and they should actually know better. What are your thoughts on all of this?
I think they should get more than 1 point. Majority of my clients are professional drivers, and what happens if they're off the road for 3 months? They can't pay their bills, they can't support the family, they're not assisting the government in any form of taxes. All you're doing is putting someone out of work. Yes, there needs to be, perhaps some different types of strategies and punishments so that they do correct. Perhaps they have to do courses or education, but just taking somebody off the road for 3 or 6 months because of demerit points, and that could be, sometimes trucks have a great difficulty slowing down in time where there's changed speed limits. Got quite a number of those. They're slowing down, but they can't slow down at the pace of a car. Yet they're receiving, potentially double demerits for that. So no, I have a lot of sympathy for professional drivers. That's their livelihood, and I think they deserve even more than 1 point.
Okay, last thing, Rod, please jump in here. Here we are. The end of June, the NHVR is launching there, and Kelsey will bleep this out because we might get taken off our platform, but it's called the Don't F with the Truck campaign. Have you heard of this?
It was Don't Muck with the Truck at one stage, they were a little bit more careful, and then, of course, they used the little asterisk instead with the F. So,
okay,
yes,
sorry.
And look, the campaign's there.
Sorry, Belinda. It's
back it up.
I'll just beep, beep, beep. I'm just reversing over that. Don't Muck with the Truck campaign. Nearly a third of young respondents during a survey admitted to having a close call with a heavy truck, but a number of young drivers admitted that they'd never had an experience with a heavy vehicle on the road, let alone experience on a freeway. And more than 50% of young people reported having experienced nervousness when sharing the road with trucks and lack of experience playing the big role. For L&P platers, there is no copy and paste for the exact same skill set that applies to driving around other cars. Your thoughts on I'll fix that. Don't muck with the truck campaign. Who wants to go first?
Belinda, you go, because I have two questions for you to finish off with. So you go.
I think it's a good point. Like you look at narrow roads like Pennant Hills Road, for example, and you've got a big truck next to you and you're an inexperienced driver. It could absolutely be nerve-wracking. But perhaps there needs to be some time dedicated either as a learner or a provisional driver so that they learn to just give the trucks a bit of extra space. And they may take two lanes when they're turning and you need to back off and understand that they're leaving a gap between the car in front of them to allow them to stop safely. That's not a gap for you to change lanes and move in front of. Yeah, I think targeting young drivers, I've got an 18-year-old on the road at the moment, and I think doing courses and actually, I seem to be preaching on courses. I'm sorry, I'm not normally like that, but I do think teaching our young ones how to probably respect the heavy vehicles on the road so that they're not scared, but they're driving out of a bit more confidence and understanding what the truck needs.
Okay, Rob, before you jump in, question, because I've taught 3 kids to drive. The reason I didn't teach the 4th one because she was an absolute pain in the ass and knew everything. I didn't need Google with her. She knew everything. And it was, but I taught 3 kids all on a manual, incidentally. But your 18-year-old, this is the important question, male or female?
Female.
Okay, it's your 18-year-old daughter. How many kids do you have?
I have 3 girls.
Is this 3 girls? Wow, God.
Yeah.
God, imagine trying to share a bathroom in your place. Isn't it great having an ensuite?
Yeah.
I digress, because I was going to say, do you find boys easier to teach than girls? But you got 3 girls. The 18-year-old, oldest, youngest, middle, what?
Oldest.
Okay, so this is the first one and is she on her red peas or green peas?
She just moved to a green peas.
Okay, congratulations. It's a nerve-wracking thing teaching your child to drive. Were you the principal teacher?
I was in Papua New Guinea when she was doing a lot of the learning, but when I came back, I was doing it, and it is probably the most terrifying experience.
It is absolutely
and I was in the police, and I found that more terrifying.
Really? Were you high patrol at any point?
Yeah, I did 3 years on the beat at Redfern, Redfern in the heyday.
Wow. Everleigh Street?
Yes, yeah.
And we can get to this. It's another podcast I'm going to have with you, Belinda, if that's all right.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's getting back to road safety and teaching our kids. Most kids living in metropolitan areas maybe have never been on a freeway. They've never had the car over 100, where you can't when you're on your L's and your P's, can you? What's the speed limit?
Yeah, I think it's 90 or 100. Yeah.
Okay. So finally you get out on the freeway and you're allowed to go 110 and negotiate traffic and trucks. It's an absolutely frightening experience for inexperienced people. Do we need to improve the testing? Because this is only my opinion, but I think professional driver trainers are there to help you pass an exam. They don't really teach you to drive. I think the 120 hours with mum or dad or both or whatever is so important. And I wonder, are many parents really qualified to do this important job?
Well, I wasn't, I have to say.
And you were with the highway patrol.
Jesus. I made her more nervous the way I was gripping onto the bar of the
Jesus bar.
Oh my goodness, it's terrifying.
How many times did you put your foot through the floor on the imaginary brake?
It's involuntary, isn't it?
Isn't it?
Look, she did her hours with me. Then I made her go and do an additional course. And the instructor actually said, why are you here? You've already done your hours. And she said, my mum won't let me drive unless I've done this safety course.
Yeah.
And then I also put her with a professional because I didn't want to worry about her being on the road. I wanted her to be a good driver. So I went overboard, but now I don't stay up at night if she's out because I know she knows how to drive defensively.
Yeah, that was my next thing. I've had a big discussion on air about this many times, haven't I, Rod? Should it be compulsory? I believe swimming lessons should be compulsory for every Australian child. We have a huge ratio of houses and swimming pools, and we're girt by water, right? And I think swimming lessons should be compulsory. Do you think defensive driving lessons should also be compulsory and subsidised?
Absolutely. It's, they told me that in the police.
You can means test it all you want. Means test it all you want. But do you think every child should learn defensive driving?
Absolutely, without a doubt. And if we're serious about reducing this road toll, we have to do something. And driving defensively protects you because you're expecting other people to stuff up, which they do. It really does teach you how to brake safely under extreme conditions as well.
And look ahead and anticipate and anticipate. Yeah. It's an interesting discussion. You and I need to chat again. Rod, you had another question.
Yes, mate. So, as you say, you've invested in your daughter's life by getting out those courses. We don't teach them how to share the road with trucks. Sometimes they learn by accident. Sometimes it costs them their life because somebody didn't teach them. As Luke said, I believe that they are taught to pass the test, not taught to survive on the road. So the two questions, Belinda, you said before, those fines and that affect the drivers, but it does go on to affect their families. Like, again, the driver gets that fine, he goes home and says, sorry, you can't eat this week or next week or the week after. Is that fair and just that level of infringement for the real risk involved is completely out of whack? And look, I even had a driver the other day say to me, sometimes when you go to court, the file happens to go missing or the bloke put his hand over it or he did something. And of course, in New South Wales, you cannot record a conversation unless the other party is aware. This bloke's saying that we should go and buy our own body cameras and make sure that when you get out of the truck, you have them turned on so that there doesn't happen to be a mistake where you said something that actually exonerates you, that gets lost or disappears or there's a glitch and you've got a record of your own. So in that regard, what advice would you give? Should we say to the bloke, mate, I'm recording this as well? Or should we even consider a body cam? Because sometimes, depending on, again, how the interaction has gone, the truck driver may be at fault. I'm not saying we're all perfect. None of us are perfect. But so often when I hear from somebody, the intent to improve road safety is there, whether it's in HPR or police, but the outcome tends to be completely over the top in either the stress, the level of penalty, the effect on your family. As you say, you lose your licence for 3 months. How do you feed them and pay your bills, and you lose your house and all of that, when realistically you may not have caused an accident? Yes, there's a possibility, and that's what they say in court. Well, somebody could have got killed, but nobody did get killed, and we don't want that to happen. I don't know a single truck driver anywhere that goes to work with the intent to do something stupid and make a mistake. But geez, we are human, but they don't treat us that way, do they?
That's a lot of thoughts there, and I really do sympathise and with the industry and particularly truckies. I mean, the stuff, the road trauma that they see on the road that they're exposed to as well. And as we know, the stats are a large majority of these accidents aren't the truckies' fault, but they're the ones that still, even though, for example, the one the other week, we know that the vehicle crossed the wrong side of the road and head on into the truck, but that truck driver is exposed to that road trauma. That truck driver is exposed to the breath testing and the initial stares and scrutiny and everything by both the media and potentially the police until it's worked out that he or she wasn't at fault. So I have a huge amount of sympathy there. But in relation to body cam, I would say no. I would say that would antagonise more than assist. But I would say know what you say every time. When you get pulled over, reply to the mandatory questions, which is your name, your address, and that's it.
Yeah, you said at the beginning, your advice would be don't talk.
No. So you don't need to worry about what they're recording because, every time you get pulled over, you don't say anything other than what the mandatory responses are. And if you're not sure, say, am I required at law to answer this? And they need to tell you. If they say yes, then answer it. And if they say no, then don't answer it. I would prefer all my clients do that.
There you are.
But then, of course, you try and do the right thing, don't you? The bloke pulls you up and you think you're having a friendly chat and then all of a sudden...
It's not friendly. It's never friendly.
No.
It's not. It's going
That's
to
what I
be
meant.
used against you.
It's never friendly. They're building a case. They're not being friendly.
They are.
All
They
right.
are. And you think you're being friendly back and that they might not give you a ticket. They're always going to give you a ticket. They're always going to charge you, and they're just using what you say to produce it in the facts.
There you are.
But you do have to be respectful, don't we? We do have to be,
100%.
to start the conversation, yes.
All
Be very respectful, and if you feel uncomfortable, say, look, I've received advice not to speak. I don't mean to be rude. I'm just not going to speak, and I'm not going to answer any questions I don't have to.
Fascinating chat. I wish we had more time, but as I said, there is a separate podcast with you and me, Belinda, on your
Yeah, sounds great.
on your career and the journeys you've been on, the fascinating characters you've met in and out of court, and there's a whole new story, and there's a whole podcast on teaching our kids to drive. But we might need to get a psychiatrist or a psychologist on with us.
I have to say, I think I've started sweating just at the thought of reliving those moments.
I know. I've got a twitch now. It's come back. It's come back. Rod Hannafy, you take care. You're in Dubbo. Where's your next trip?
Mate, I'm leaving this afternoon to go to Moree, Newcastle and Central Queensland. And Belinda, have you actually spent any time in a truck?
I was going to ask that.
Well, not many people know this, but my dad and my brothers all drive trucks.
Wow.
Oh, there you go. I was going to offer you a ride if you hadn't been in one of late.
One of the first things they found out when I was at the NHVR is I had to go and sit behind the wheel, and then they walked out the front of the truck so that I could see how far it was until I could see them.
Yes.
So they did that in multiple different types of trucks so that I understood. And so, yeah, I get the personal side a lot. They do talk to me a lot about their experiences and how difficult enforcement can be.
You are fascinating. I'm so glad we had you on, and you've been really generous with your time. I hate to see the bill Rod's going to get.
No, thank you very much for your time, Belinda. And look, as an industry, we support your knowledge and your experience.
Yeah.
And as I say, mate, if I get people that have those questions that I can't answer, I'm certainly going to refer them to you. And of course, that was the reason that I initially contacted you to make sure I was doing the right thing, referring them to you.
No, thank you. And thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Welcome to the Bonafide podcast. This is called Truckie Tuesday. And there you are, Belinda Hughes, former chief prosecutor with the NHVR, but now has her own law firm, Hughes Law it's called. And if you need help, they're the people to contact. And Rod Hannafy, you take care of yourself, King of the Kenworth. Remember, it's at the NHVR that's launched Don't Muck with a Truck. I'll fix up my language there. Don't muck with a truck. Have a look at it. Thank you so much, both of you.
Good on you, mate. Safe travelling to all. Thanks, Belinda.
Thank you. See you both. Bye.
Well, that's it. A big, massive cheer for the folk at GME. Thank you for keeping the Aussie transport industry talking. It's engineered specifically to handle the bull dust, the corrugations, and the longest hauls you can throw at it. Head over to gme.net.au. That's gme.net.au. Links are in the description, and we'll see you next week. Thank you so much for listening and taking part. And for all our new subscribers, welcome to the fam. And please spread the word. Subscribe, like, share, do all that, and become part of the Bonafide podcast family. Thank you, Kelsey. Kelsey Menzies, executive producer. You guys take care. The Bonafide podcast, where we don't tell you what to think. We just like to give you something to think about.
And a thought of the day.
Oh, this is a true story. The other night, we went out to a karaoke bar.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't play any 70s music. At first, I was afraid. In fact, I was petrified.
Goodbye.